Righty. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's begin. Right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Minturn Town Council. Today's Wednesday, June 17th. Let's begin with roll call, please.
I'm here.
Spence here.
Gus here.
Eric here. Okay. That is all.
Good.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the United States, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have a declaration of conflicts of interest and then the consent. We'll put that out of order.
I am currently on the DDA track to be appointed again, so I'm going to abstain from the consent agenda.
Excuse me if I could,
Yes.
we won't have a quorum to do the consent agenda if you do that, because it's just a member that's going to be, there's two people on it that you're reappointing. I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem. What do you think? I mean, we can not do the consent agenda tonight, but I got two liquor licenses that might be concerned. We can pull it.
You told me.
Well, I know, I was thinking that, but I thought we'd have more people too.
I'm happy to vote that we're reappointing the same two people that have been on there for.
And so because it's the same people, I don't see it as a
conflict.
Supreme Court case.
All right.
On vote, it's just an appointment,
Yes.
right?
Right. Correct. Yeah. One of the case. We'll rescind that, and I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
You should make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Gussie, second by Spence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, regular agenda. Anything to add?
Well, we would like to, I mean, nobody's here for the playground, but we would like to maybe request to put the playground in front of the housing strategy presentation. Because that's a bit longer, just in case there's anybody from the public. And then we're gonna we have a representative from Eagle River Water Stand, and they're gonna talk under the manager's report about a project they have.
Excellent. Okay. That will take a motion to, oh, sorry.
What A and B in the discussion, right?
Yes, so 11. Yeah.
Oh, and yes, and then the encroachment is the application was withdrawn,
Oh, okay.
so we don't need to hear that. We request to strike it.
All right.
I make a motion to approve the regular agenda with the insertion of Eagle River Water District presentation during the manager's report and swapping A and B in sequence for discussion.
And then removing the ordinance number 6, series 2026.
Moving ordinance number 6, 2026.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Tom, second by Gustie, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And let's see, any declarations of conflict of interest tonight? And none, I no longer have one. We will move on to public comment. So at this point, anybody in the public, if they would like to speak or say anything that is not on the agenda, you may now step on up and you one at a time. If you can, please state your name and address for the record.
You know.
Hi, council. Chris Reeder, 332 Taylor. I handed out a little bit of the final plat for Minturn North. In red is the fence that I'm gonna kind of talk about. Be honest, I know this is a very small fence and a small issue, but it has implications and really indicates a bigger issue overall with not just this development, but concerns I have about how the town has handled a variety of things. I emailed first about this on the 26th of May. And I know, Rob, you were out of town, but It's the 17th of June now. And I haven't had any response of substance other than we'll look into it. Throughout the entire Minturn North development process, I feel like there's been a lot of reactive oversight and very little proactive monitoring control of the development. Last time I was in here, I try not to bug you guys too much, but last time I was in here, I brought safety concerns up, right? With the paving of Minturn Road and County Road, how dangerous that would be. That turn past Minturn Saloon. My office faces right out to that turn, and I see tons of, I'm gonna say tourists, e-biking on the left side of the road near Minturn. Somebody's gonna get hit, right? People don't know how to use their bikes. Minturn County Road, it is like an autobahn out there, seeing people drive so fast. All of the safety measures I talked about, all the concerns I brought up, there was one additional stop sign put in. I appreciate that one stop sign, but there's still numerous safety issues. So throughout this process, whether it's safety issues, construction traffic, trash being blown all over that entire neighborhood, everything's been reactive and residents have been forced to bring things to people's attention rather than the town proactively managing it. That's what this fence indicates for me, but the implications extend beyond just what the fence is now. The fence at hand, it spans 4 houses. It butts up right against the Eco Trail. And it's, a split rail fence with a wire mesh. Not that big of a deal, except that the fence is located in Tract E, which is part of PA4 in the planning zone or planning PUD guide. And that planning zone is open space, dedicated for snow removal or snow storage. And in the planning, in the final plat, it says ingress and egress for pedestrians. For me, fencing off that ditch that was made for snow storage and part of the approval process to make sure that the PUD had appropriate snow storage means that now you can't use it for snow storage. So you're losing that. Puts extra effort on town employees to plow to a different area to get rid of that snow. It presents a safety issue because there's no way to step even remotely off the trail if there's people going either way or 2 dogs passing. This ditch is for snow storage, but if you can't step off the trail at all, I just talked about how bad people are at e-biking, it can cause a safety hazard. Bottom line, the fence stops that zone from being used as what it was designated for. Secondly, in the PUD guide, it specifically says that outside of predetermined character fencing, privacy fencing, it lists a bunch of different types of fencing. It's prohibited throughout the PUD, right? And so this was not on any initial landscaping plan, anything. In fact, it was just recently approved by the town after an application by residents. The problem is it's also outside building envelope, which is also prohibited within the PUD guide. So the point, this section alone says that this should not be approved based on the regulations set forth by the PUD guide. The fact that it was approved brings up kind of my final point in that it wasn't common sense, right? If you approve this fence, pretty soon they're going to fence off all of the PUD, all of Minturn North. And that goes totally against the idea of blending into the community. Let's be honest, there's nothing about those houses that blend into anything in Minturn. But to fence it off then suddenly creates a whole different neighborhood within our neighborhood. The other implication is that it's not on anybody's property. And the residents who applied for it were just mad because people's dogs were in the ditch, right? I get that picking up dog waste is a separate issue and it's important, but it doesn't mean that they can extend their yard into the open space. It's not their property, it's not their yard. There's already a neighbor there who's yelled at my daughter and my wife for being in the ditch above Taylor Street or above their houses on Taylor Street, and my wife with a poop bag in hand picking up poop in the ditch. It's the type of people we invite when we create developments with multi-million-dollar houses. So I recognize that, but frankly, for me, this should have never been approved simply because it's not allowed in that area. The fact that it was approved without consideration, without common sense, is the biggest issue I have with how the town is being run recently. Bottom line, it shouldn't be allowed. It makes no sense. If they want to have a fence, let them move it to their lot line, which is within the building envelope, which will show them how small 10 feet of a yard looks next to their house. And that's what they signed up for when they maximized lot coverage. It doesn't give them the right to now extend their yard to the end of the open space and make safety issues and visual, it looks ridiculous, issues in an open space area where it's not allowed. I sent you an email. It's more well worded, but I will be respectful of people's time and get out of it.
Thank you, Chris.
Questions?
We don't handle questions. We'll have staff look into it. Thank you. All right, anybody else from public comment who wish to speak?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is David Murray. I moved to Colorado maybe 18 years ago to Eastvale. I've lived from there to Eaglevale. Just moved back into Minturn for the first time last week. Just a little about myself, my family, my cousins, extended family. They've owned out here. We all grew up here for the last 50 years or so. We've seen the expansion of Avon, of Eagle, everything that's happening here now today. Being from a large city in particular, and having spent the last number of years down in Denver in particular, also, number one, I know I'm made to be in the mountains. But back in Minturn here, I show up in a community like this, and I'm always like, I love the history and like coming from, Leadville to Red Cliff to Gilman all the way through to here, and having a really decent understanding of pretty specific history, why the town exists, and some of the conditions that we live within regarding the river and the toxins and so on. I can't help but want to really put forth solutions to the city that, like, I see that river, 125 years of the lifeblood just kind of being allowed to be flushed down the toilet. There's no one in this town that should be paying for electricity or water. And in my opinion, utility and food too. That river is beautiful. Unless you have an eye from someone like me who bred saltwater fish and saltwater coral for a lot of years. And much like the tourism here with hunters and fishers and athletes that want to spend time in the water, I see a single cell slime algae that has killed everything that indicates and obviously everybody knows that the toxin levels in the water are something that, I guess for a lack of a better word, people have kind of kissed off, like, hey, the tough shit, that's just kind of what it is. I know we can clean that, and I know that we can get it paid for in the process. The simple concept of bottled water directly from our archipelago community, and it is between the top of Booth Lake and the reservoir here off Tigawon and the river at Red Cliff, etc. The entire state, as well as our surrounding states, also rely on our water. And we see that with the winter last year, with the record low snowfall. We know what's going on with the river this year being so low already, what's going to happen to a lot of the fish clutch. They're already, fishermen are excited, they're biting so active. Well, to me, that they're starving. They're starving. We can fix that. And in doing so, sectioning off parts of the river to isolate toxins as well as the minerals, all of which have their own allocative retail reassignment in value. Bottled water in particular, I believe, coming directly from the reservoir, because we've already got an elevation descent down to the town there's very little reason why a gravity-fed filtration system that isolates and removes toxins as well as provides free water for the town. If you bottled it between Beaver Creek and Vale and the international confluence of not only concentrated wealth and very, very eager to be proactive on ecological concerns, I'd find it very difficult to not be able to find funding personally. That's just my faith in knowing the people that have been here and are still drawn here as the expansion of Minturn down off North Minturn project proves. From one end of town to the other, if we clean up even one section at a time, we can breed fish and amend the river so that our known coming climatological issues, such as hyperbolic deep freeze, that on a year following such low water runoff, should be a really huge concern. You know, it really, really should be. I mean, being here for a week, I finally saw 2 fish just out, just over here. I go sit in the river and I fish for nothing for fun. Well, it's beautiful, right? Between the mining from Redcliffe to what they've done to today, I know between the number of fisheries, the school of mining, the military population of folks that are here, as well as, like I said, the international confluence, which also on either side of this town for a lot of decades, you can kind of prove where the money's been allocated and where it hasn't. And some people that have lived here for generations with good reason have kept certain funding or people out, which not my business, but I totally appreciate. To keep that small town, big charm type of future for our children, I'm not kidding when I tell you we can breed fish that are manifestly hardy for cold, for specific kinds of bug hatches or clutches that would help re-inoculate a living ecosystem to the area and really bolster between Vale and Beaver Creek a more thriving introduction to the river system. And that would then also obviously allocate the beavers and bear and the birds and everything that comes along with it. And when I've got between Denver and Utah, see the way that technology is, I don't know, scientifically trying to implement some control over our natural environment, it raises every red flag for me. On someone who, like I said, I kept reef tanks, keeping coral. There are some pieces of coral about the size of a quarter. They may not weigh more than 2 grams in weight, and they'll still sell for about $1,000. These are the types of market influx that through large, Dr. Foster's and Smith was bought out by Petco. They have got an international community that ships fish live, coral live, all the way from across the globe. Papua New Guinea to my front door in 24 hours. Okay. We can, with the international hub at Eagle Airport, as well as all of the already in existence essential foundations for simple reallocation of what I would assume to be either town owned or at least town mandated allocation of a property, specify maybe even 150 feet of the river to prove that we could divert the river, clean up an area, and turn it into a healthy representation of what the whole river should be. We can also incorporate any number of events that coincide with, say, used to be the Tavy Games. Forgive me, that's what I still call it. Is it still GoPro games now? Right? Yeah. All of those events from summer and winter can absolutely be trained for first responder, emergency evacuation, as well as having an idea of, in this town, if you were to have a weld ice climbing training or otherwise public access type of built ice wall, in ratio to the Fang or the Deviator, we could avoid people ever being crushed from ice falling on them solely by understanding what our climate here is doing in relation to our ice. And then having the ability to be like, all right, that means, all right, at this point in time, March, whatever it is, it's too warm. We know our ice is fracturing or it's going, rotten like the snow. You can call it on the deviator of the thing. We can avoid all those different, unfortunately negative incidents that we all have had to deal with through the community for a lot of decades, and really allocate a removing products that we don't need here. And especially with Minter, you can allocate specific products specifically for this river, for this town.
I appreciate all your input. Happily write it. 5 minutes is the cutoff.
Sorry, I wasn't aware. I could go on.
I appreciate that, but time to wrap it up.
I appreciate it, and I can at that. There's a lot more to it. I've got a whole plan set up as far as the funding all the way through to generational turnaround that we could measure. It would allocate every bit of a replenishing community. I'd be happy if anybody be willing to work together to feel out there who's interested or.
Send an email to the town manager, please.
All right.
We'll act on it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anyone else public comment? Lynn, please. Name and address for the record. Yes.
Lynn Teach, 253 Pine Street. I just wanted to make a comment. I don't know how many of you are aware that a book on Belden was written a year ago by a young man from the Vail Christian Academy, Malcolm Osborne, with the help of his principal, Steve. And they were recognized last Sunday at the Avon Library for being Historical People of the Year from the Eagle County Historical Society. And we got some books published, which Rob will have at our booth this summer, because he was able to acquire some through there. And I wanted you to be aware that Kathy Hiker recognized Minturn for our donation twice during her opening speech. So if you were to see her, say thank you. And if you see Malcolm or Steve, please congratulate them on what they did.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you.
Really cool.
Hi, Mark Tamburino, property owner, 474 Main Street, 381 Black Baron Gypsum, it's my home address. Here to talk about energy and what we as a town might be able to do about it. I'm sure you all who live here in the town are just as frustrated as me, myself, being a business owner, waking up or going to bed at night and constantly having to reset your microwave clock that you probably have to bust out the owner's manual on to figure it out. I'm getting pretty tired of it. I've reached out to Excel numerous times. I've had them run a report on why our power goes out so much. I've interviewed linesmen who fix the power sitting in my restaurant, and it all comes down to our town putting the bricks to Excel or the Energy Coalition and putting higher demands on them to bring us better infrastructure. I forwarded Jay an email that I received from Excel yesterday of outages that they have on record, which is really inaccurate because me and Chris McGinnis from Rocky Mountain Taco, every time the power goes out, we have a pact to text each other. Hey, is your power out? Is our power out? We have so much time with the food in our refrigerators, with our staff to act. I mean, pretty much. The other day on Sunday, as you all know, the power went out, I think at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock or something like that. And honestly, I got 3 different text messages from Excel Energy saying, the power is going to be on at 5:45. The power is going to be on at 11:45. The power is going to be on at 6:45. I know when you're sitting in your home and the power's off, it's probably pretty peaceful. I am stressing about it because I have 5 employees that are running payroll. I have food in the refrigerator. I have hot food that's sitting in warm plates. It's all a timing issue with me, and it's all part of staying in business. And we have enough power outages here in this town of Minturn, like I've seen in no other place that I've lived in the valley. And I've lived everywhere. East Vail in the early 70s. I lived in Mainvale when I first moved here in 2004. I've lived in Avon. I live in Gypsum now. We do not have these kind of power outages anywhere else in this valley. And honestly, the linesman at Excel that sat in my restaurant told me exactly why. The infrastructure in our town is old wires. The connectivity in the copper is brittle. When the wind blows, the line flexes and there's no connectivity in that insulated wire. And so until we replace these wires and update our infrastructure, every business in town will struggle with staying in power. So I urge you as a council, as a staff, to really reach out to your power coalition and put the bricks to them, because it's really, really affecting us.
Let me just add to that. I think it's really become, it's always been an issue in Minturn.
You know,
It's really been an issue in the last couple of weeks. It's been crazy. The electricity has gone out so often, and the twice in one day, and there's no explanation. The estimated time of getting the electricity back on, or getting the system back on, has been wildly long.
yeah,
Just wildly long.
you can't operate.
I think the town needs to investigate this. I would request that the town look into this.
I wanted to tag on because this is
No,
part and
just-
parcel.
Wait your turn. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing this, Lynn. As you know, you've been my neighbor for 20 years, and we've been through this together. I mean, you all have been through it too. So
Hydro Solar, this entire town should be being paid by Excel.
we have a contract with a company, and I know we're in a contract, but I really think that we could work with them to bring better power to our town. So I urge you to help. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
I'd love to pick your brain.
Cindy, anybody online?
No one with their hand raised.
All right, perfect. That, I will close public comment.
Yeah,
And
the last one was the transformer blew up in Red Cliff. So per the presentation she gave, their system tripped because there was a fire.
yes. Yeah, that's true. All right, on to council and committee reports. Any, no report?
Maybe.
Nothing? Span?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, just quick, the pilot program for the town.
Mobile business.
The small business pilot, mobile business. I got some bread from Little Bakery. It's awesome. Highly recommend everybody order from him, who had to delay my order a couple days because his power went out during cooking. And then I haven't made it to the sauna yet, but it looks awesome too. So I'm happy that the program's going. Hopefully they're successful.
It's a great idea.
Are you?
Today we had a High Five Access Media Board meeting and we adopted the strategic plan, which I've been working on for the last few months. And JK did an excellent presentation on cost, values, and impacts. It pretty much just shows what it costs High Five to operate. The impacts basically it has on different, like town of Minturn, and value that you get out of it. So he had a little slideshow that was really informative.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really quick for me, I attended the ribbon cutting at the CMC building for the Eagle County Housing and Authority Board. And it was, it's just great to see what I would say public and private partnership can achieve. And
The new housing project by the park?
yeah, and it was great to see affordable housing, truly affordable housing being worked on in the core of our county, and hopefully much more to come, but great event for sure. And that's all I got.
Okay.
Staff reports.
We will, I'll have the planning staff follow up with the council on the concerns about the fence at Minturn North. at the next meeting, I'll just get a written response. We issue the permit. I don't think we have any major concerns, but we'll double check everything and we'll respond in a written form. I, will try to get our rep from Excel, Blair McGeary, into town to at least sit down and meet with me so we can talk about these issues. Because, I mean, what's concerning is that we know that we're going to be facing more shutoffs because of fire conditions. And then we're coupling that with just what seems like system unreliability. And that's just a level of interruption that is just not tolerable. I mean, we couldn't even work on, was it Monday? Or was it Friday? Wednesday? Last Wednesday. Yeah, like that whole day was a wash. So I think our approach to Excel over the last few months has been to try to be collaborative, try to work through issues and go, look, this is what we need. What can we do to get this? And I think we'll start there and see where we can go. But these kind of outages just from service reliability, I think are really having a huge impact on us.
It would be nice to have analysis of the number of outages that are just based on old infrastructure that hasn't been replaced by Excel as opposed to fire related.
So I have just emailed over to Rob provisions from the franchise agreement and some recommendations about how we begin that process, Lynn, and give us an opportunity to dig in and get some things in motion, and we'll report back.
So I'll try to bring something at the next meeting and say, look, this is where we started and this is where we're going to go with this. And then if there's direction needed, we talk about it.
I think what's frustrating is that they made $1 billion in Colorado last year in profit, and they're asking for a 10% raise hike or to the PUC this year currently. So if we can't get reliable power when they're making record profits, why should we approve that or have it like they just need to step up their game?
I think just making a lot of noise can sometimes be helpful on that issue, but we need to have our facts straight.
Okay. All right, we'll get started on that. I have Jeff Schneider from Eagle River Water Sand to talk to you about a project that we heard about yesterday. So is there any questions for staff on any other item or issue we need to talk about?
Rob, on the manager's report underneath the new water treatment plant.
Yeah.
You put that we're going to have some special inspections and testing that would be handled under
Right.
HDR. What are those? Do you know right now? I know
Soil compaction
testing.
testing, soil compaction testing, and I think some concrete testing.
Okay, so that has to be done by an expert in that field.
Yeah, and so I've reached out to Kumar and a few other firms. And I kind of got to get that accelerated because I think we need our first inspection on the 29th of June.
Okay.
For that. And so mobilization started this week for the project. So it is off to a start. And then mobilization for the bridge repair also started today.
And will there be a discussion later in the meeting about the North Minturn Bridge? I mean, fence?
I was going to talk with the planning staff and come back with a written response to it at the next meeting.
Okay.
On that one, and just because that PUD is a little complex, I just want to make sure we check all the boxes. Because I know Mr. Reader is very familiar with the PUD.
Right.
I just had one question. What is the Minturn siphon project?
So that is what Mr. Schneider's going to talk to us now from Eagle River Water Sand. And then just one follow up on the mobile business. We haven't received any complaints about that program yet, but if there's an issue that arises, just let me know as quickly as possible and we'll deal with it. Okay. Okay, Jeff, and you have the screen share. Are you ready to go?
So
Okay, let me know if you need help. Perfect. It looks like you're ready to go.
Sorry. On screen. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I'm Jeff Schneider and I run the engineering department and temporarily manager of field operations team at Eagle River. I also live at 452 Pine Street, so this is near and dear to me, multiple layers. We have a project we've been working on for quite a long time. We originally budgeted for it back in 2017. We did master planning and testing, and while it appears it's coming out of nowhere, we've been working on it for quite a while. We didn't get the project out bid until early summer, finishing up drawings and CDOT permitting and all that stuff. And
kind of really need contractor input before we start, getting out to the public and everything like that. I hate to make promises contractors don't keep or whatever like that. So we are ramping up right now to start work on this project. So background is the sewer collection system in Minturn runs through, I have a better diagram here. It generally runs through, down the river, and it crosses Highway 24 right here by Magustos in front of the fly shop there. And then it goes to a siphon right next to the highway embankment there. The siphon is where you have a gravity system and it goes into two smaller pipes, and the upstream side is lower than the downstream side. It's just like a siphon. You get water to flow. It sort of pressurizes pipe underneath the river. It's one way to move gravity systems up and down a hill, basically, without pumping. This thing was installed, we think, in like the late 60s. It's been sort of a maintenance headache for our field team for a long time. The upstream manhole structure is located in a very difficult and unsafe access point between the highway and the river. There are two, it goes from one pipe into two, and there should be a gate to control flow and use one pipe only and have one as a backup. That gate is corroded and has been gone for a long time. So we're hoping to address that too and get it back into a more of an operational configuration like it was originally designed to do. We did study the capacity. We have an old study with like the full Battle Mountain build out project that came through, and we did sewer modeling and everything like that. So we're happy to say that we don't need to upsize this thing. We did an investigation in fall of 2023, which required us to mobilize bypass pumping, pump around the thing from in front of the fly shop basically to the manhole by the saloon. We had to dewater it. You can't turn off wastewater, right? You can't tell people to stop taking showers and going to the bathroom. So we dewatered this thing, we cleaned it, we video inspected it. And in my career of dealing with aging infrastructure problems, this was in surprisingly good condition, I'm happy to say. So we did a big alternatives analysis, would involve replacement of the pipeline, which would involve some tunneling project beneath the Eagle River, open excavation through the river, rerouting it, hanging it off the bridge, or a new bridge with you guys, whatever that would be, but the elevations really don't work out for that. We studied the heck out of it and landed on a rehabilitation solution. What we're going to do, and here's the sort of a section view of what the siphon looks like. On the right is the Highway 24 side, and it goes underneath the Eagle River and then comes up in the backyard of the Eagle River and in the sewer easement. A little bit more about the project. We have Kinley Horn, a civil engineering firm, helping us with some design work. We got Heil Construction out of Newcastle, who's a pretty capable utility contractor. Our total budget for the project is $1.48 million. We're installing 12 linear feet of new pipe, so there might be a new record in terms of cost per foot of pipe. But we are doing rehabilitation work on a large segment of pipe, so it doesn't quite capture the true per foot cost. And our funding source is a debt service rate that all Minturn customers and all wastewater customers in the entire district pay on their sewer bills. We've been working quite a bit with CDOT as the main jurisdiction, since it's located within the Highway 24 right of way. And we've been working quite a bit with town of Minturn, specifically with your engineer, Intermountain, Jeff Spinell, and everything like that, as we develop the project. And now that we have a contractor on board, they have subcontractors lined up, we're ready to start the work. And this is where the bad stuff starts to talk about. So somebody put a highway right on top of our sewer system a long time ago. And the only way to get to these manholes is from the highway. There's really no other way to do it. So we're starting to work on Monday the 22nd. We're going to start seeing a lot of notification come out right now to get the public aware. Been working with Cindy on your team as well on using our messaging for Minturn people. We are going to be doing just daytime flagging operations to start within the 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. time frame. Now I sat in those gas line traffic jams too, since I live right up the street. We're really tight on holding those hours and trying to avoid rush hour traffic volumes. That's huge. And our flaggers are instructed to allow for additional traffic flow for the directional rush hour work too. We're on a Monday through Friday work schedule.
But then at 4:30 every day, we're out of there. The road's put back, we can drive on it again like that. That's very important. The thing with that is contractors like to work 7 to 7 to get to, truncate their schedule, but we have to make some decisions on that, and we chose to really limit that long day impact. Weekends, holiday weekends off, obviously. CDOT has strict requirements on weekend work, specifically holiday weekend work. We are to be off the road by noon on July 2nd, for example, or 4th of July weekend. Get out of your way. We're continuing to coordinate with Rob and his team on your bridge project. If we tried to coordinate and have projects starting at the same time, we couldn't do any better than we did by accident with you guys on this one. So we're working pretty hard to mitigate the impacts down there for additional traffic control. I've sort of been authorized to, if there's I've been authorized to, I have some discretion to help the town on keeping traffic moving on the south of the town there, as well as the back road, so to speak, may be impacted. There's our project schedule we received from the contractor. I just received this on Monday pretty much, so it's pretty fresh. They want to mobilize on the 22nd. You have to remove the guardrail to get access to the hillside and the manholes, and that requires immediate placement of Jersey barriers to keep vehicles from plunging into the river. We have to install a shoring system because we're excavating about 10 feet deep right next to the active highway. So we have to engineer a shoring system and a subcontractor coming in. We don't show a nice break there for 4th of July weekend, but that's there. And then the meat of the project really is installing a ultraviolet cured lining in both pipelines underneath the river. That requires establishment of a bypass pumping system that will collect the wastewater flow from the manhole. Sorry, I don't have a great photo. The manhole here right by the fly shop, we'll have to basically plug the downstream end of it. I'm in talks with the landowner adjacent to the fly shop. We're securing a temporary easement to place the pumps off the highway and actually punch into the manhole underground, so we don't have any disturbances on the highway there. And then we're going to pump around and dump it into the manhole above ground. We're going to do the same treatment on near the saloon, do a shallow road cut, and dump the discharge side of our bypass pumping. Now the bypass pumping needs to occur. As you can see, it's extended here. We have to do it for excavation. We have to do it to clean the pipeline. It's sort of an unknown condition. A lot of it's been underwater for quite some time. Cleaning and access is very difficult. It has to be clean in order to line it. This shows 4 weeks of pumping. I think we can do it in 3. We're working on negotiating some early completion bonuses with our contractor as well to try to move them along. Question?
I'm not clear. Are you going to be able to drive in from Highway 24 to this loose in Minturn Road?
Yeah, open and
So all traffic is going to be diverted there?
all diverted. There'll just be a lane closure, kind of roughly right where the
So the east side from where?
yeah, it's kind of fly shop, and then a little bit to the north of that, there'll be a flagging and 1 lane closure for our work area we're talking about for traffic control. Other options.
I'm thinking, boy, we've got this, and then we've also got the bridge, the Minturn Bridge closed down.
Mhm.
And we've got this horrible fire danger, and it sounds like we're all kind of trapped in here for this entire summer.
Well, that's why, we want to finish what you're talking about, but obviously we need to have a discussion about why this is kind of first we've heard about it to inform our decision on the Minturn North Bridge. We're going to have to revisit traffic control on the Minturn North Bridge.
I'm working with these guys to try to get that bridge open.
It seems like there has to be some sequencing or something. And particularly with us not being in this narrow canyon with the biggest fire danger of the entire county. And this work taking place during the biggest fire danger time. It just seems like really, really bad timing to me.
We do have the ability to obviously, if there was an emergency or evacuation, get the road open, flip the signs, put people through there for sure. We're coordinating with County Bristol Services and the fire district, of course, letting them know. I totally understand your concerns. we have, our CDOT permit has certain restrictions on work as well during like red flag times. Mostly related to like cutting and welding and that kind of thing that generates sparks, but I don't think that should really slow down our schedule too much.
It's all red flag time.
I know, every day is, I get it. Get it.
When are you proposing to limit access to one lane?
We're looking at doing daytime flagging operations starting the 22nd Monday.
And Rob, when is the contractor mobilizing and we're shutting the other bridge, the only other access through town down?
Today, we started mobilizing today.
I think there's some huge safety issues that need to be
Yeah.
worked through before we shut this highway down.
Well, that's why we need to expound upon the Minturn North Bridge. Whatever that looks like, we need 2 access points 24/7. So whether that's the west lane on 24 and 1 lane open, since we just agreed to not do traffic. So are you saying the cost to do traffic control at the Minturn North Bridge is going to be absorbed by ERWSD?
We can help with that.
So I sent an email to the town engineer, Jeff Spinell, several hours ago with Jeff Snyder on it and said, hey, let's try to have a conversation tomorrow about how we can coordinate on traffic control to provide access over Minturn Road Bridge. And I think this is going to go a little bit better than the project with Excel in SiteWise. And I think we can work with our permitting at CDOT, Mr. Alan Crambier, and the management of this. Because one of the things that was frustrating last year was even like a lot of times the access to Bellin Bridge was blocked because of the traffic, and then the access at Toledo was blocked. But I think we can work with EWRSD and CDOT to make sure that those access points are open so we can get a little better flow.
Isn't Holy Cross starting their project on Highway 24 this summer too?
For the transmission line,
Yes.
I'm not sure about that because I haven't seen anything.
Seen anything, but I did read that they were digging up.
I mean, that would be perfect. We might as well get it all done, right?
Well, one question I have though is an internal processes thing. We're just finding out about this and we're going to start on the 22nd. Obviously, it sounds like a significant amount of groundwork and coordination has happened. So for the purposes of strategically figuring out our project, something's very broken here.
Yeah, no.
That's our internal conversation to have.
Yeah.
Secondly, on this note, the businesses just got kicked in the head this winter. So it begs the question why this couldn't have been done in the shoulder months.
Spring shoulder months for wastewater projects we avoid because of high flows every spring except this one. We have a large amount of excessive wastewater flow.
And this fall?
This fall, I mean, I guess it would be a possibility to look at it. We have school we do have some intention of trying to get out of there before school starts and all that stuff. There's certainly that consideration.
Wait for the El Nino arrive, so at least we're not a tinder box.
Usually when we start a major project, we get weather issues. So I mean, maybe we can make it happen for you guys there. I don't know. I mean,
Can it be deferred until next year? Because all these projects coming together, between you and Excel and Holy Cross.
I mean,
The fact that we're in a bottleneck and the worst fire danger ever. In the most dangerous part of the entire county for fire anyway. With a terrible evacuation. Routes.
it was certainly a lesson to me finding out about the bridge project. We met yesterday just to talk about how we get the word out and then started talking about the other project. And honestly, I've been stressed out about coming in here and talk to you guys since then.
Little pop-up.
I'm sorry?
That was a legitimate pop-up. I'll give you that.
Oh, I get it, but also like, so I need to pay better attention to, what you guys have going on, and we'll make sure we coordinate our efforts a little better. As far as delaying till fall, I guess that's an option. There will be a cost, which all of you that pay a sewer bill will probably have to absorb, to some small degree. I don't think there's a major issue with that. There's a lot of subcontractors lined up and all that stuff. So, I mean, if the town does have grading permit and right-of-way permit for the work, and I mean, one option would be to direct the staff to, not issue those permits until the other bridge project is complete. I'm pushing on trying to get that bridge open. Maybe when we meet tomorrow, we're talking to Jeff a little bit, we can. Nothing's happened quite yet. We can always delay. We also have a window now. We're sort of lined up to do the work. So, I mean, I'm not really. I'm obviously advocating to try to get the work done. But if there's excessive concerns and public safety is compromised, then that's something we care about to a great deal as well. So
technically, one lane would be open all the time then.
one lane flagging
Both
and then
So
one direction,
Yeah,
there'd be
one
one lane,
yeah.
one lane closed.
that is shared by both directions.
weird idea. What if we do US 24 coming south one way, reverse Eagle River Streets and put everyone down there that goes up Midterm Road?
CDOT has authority over that road because the intersection is in their right of way at Bellum Bridge and in that road. And so that's a non-option because I talked to Jeff about it earlier in the week. And so we can't, if that wasn't a factor, we could do something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And
Well,
one big advantage of doing it in the fall is that there's way less traffic. If you hit shoulder season, there's way less traffic on Highway 24. Summer is maximum amount of traffic.
Mr. Sawyer.
I was just gonna note, there's an additional limitation on Bellum Bridge that we've been trying to prevent larger loads going across that due to concerns we have about that structure.
That's
Pull up a nice area for us to talk about here, guys.
well, let's try to get Mr. Snyder with our town engineer, Mr. Spinell tomorrow. Look at our options and maybe we could look at some delay. We could look at traffic control to try to keep the other bridge open during that work. I think it's a possibility. We just need to have a meeting with our town engineer to understand the scope of that demo and how much traffic can go at what times. And then we can go from there.
Why are we just finding out about this now in light of all these issues, obvious issues?
It was really the timing of our construction bidding and then getting the schedule from the contractor.
You didn't think that it would all come together like this for,
It kind of came together honestly a little quicker once we got everything awarded and oh wow, I started the 22nd. That's cool. It was a bit of I thought they'd wait till after the 4th, frankly.
I mean,
There's a bit of a window there.
seems like this is the sort of thing that we should have notice of
Yeah.
prior to the bid procedure.
We've had numerous meetings with the town engineer on the project as
That's
well.
all we need that with internal conversation.
Everything like that.
Just never came.
I have not been in here talking to you guys about it yet. Until today.
No,
No, it's
there was meetings with the town engineer, but I don't think the town engineer or Madison, who's been involved in the permitting, understood the traffic control
No,
implications.
that
So I would just say with EWRSD, it's like get Jay or Cindy or I, and just say, hey, we have something coming up.
Yeah.
And so on that point, like the ball was dropped on this one for sure. Because we didn't really know until yesterday. Otherwise, we would have worked on the bridge project and changed some things around.
This is a perfect storm.
Do we have any idea how long the bridge project will take?
We're thinking 4 weeks right now, but because we decided to do that phased approach, we're not quite sure. Because it's like, it could be a lot shorter if we don't have to do the full demo.
If they just have to.
But I want to sit down and talk with Jeff about what can we do as far as access over the bridge while they're working, because it may be more flexible than we know. It's just most of that move was to save money and we didn't see a concern there. So,
I think anything that can be postponed.
so we'll look at that and tomorrow.
In terms of anything that blocks traffic.
Anything else, Jeff? We'll follow up quickly.
I think I had another slide or two.
Oh, good.
Probably relevant now. Is our traffic control plan.
How's the line that goes down the railroad yard? What conditions it in?
Not great, but we're not gonna block any traffic.
Yeah, that one you can do on any time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But from Holy Cross, what their actual start date.
Cindy's doing some research on that right now. So we'll follow up with you as soon as
We
we
should
can.
make that a priority, so they don't just show up tomorrow, announce they're starting work next week.
It's interesting with CDOT being the authority, because they don't really include you guys unless you insert yourselves in it. So our CDOT permit, I think in reaction to the gas line project, has very highlighted area, like must talk to town council, must do all, additional stuff. Like it says, we will not field calls about the project. So you just, I guess those guys sit in junction and approve permits, but you guys have the one that have to deal with it on the front lines. So here's our, I guess, current schedule. It may change tomorrow. And then I just wanted to share a couple website kind of things, some contacts. I'm actually pinch hitting for my project manager, who should be here taking all the lumps, but he's on vacation, so I'm here for that. I guess I'll close by, I hear you guys loud and clear on your concerns and your other projects. I'll start investigating what it would look like to delay the project till fall. I don't think that would be a huge deal. Does put us up against winter conditions, but I think we can do better. Also hear you loud and clear on if we think something's coming your way. We'll get in here in the spring to talk about everything.
You couldn't do the work during red flag conditions anyway.
No, there's certain work they prohibit in red flag conditions, and it's standard permit. It's a standard thing they slide in their CDOT permits. It's more for like guys doing work, and I know like a remote highway starting a wildfire for like cutting and grinding and spark producing activities specifically. So I spoke to CDOT and they don't really have any specific concerns with this. There's no work requirement. It's having a hot work, having a fire watch, additional safety requirements to the work, not no work.
And I'm wondering about how fast you guys could clear out that lane in the middle of the day.
Depends how deep the hole we dug is.
There was an emergency.
Mhm.
That's something that I would like to know.
Yeah, no, I mean, every time you see a traffic flagging project anywhere, fire trucks are able to go through it pretty quickly. It's pretty common for the flagging, community to respond to emergency vehicles for sure.
Okay.
I guess.
Just a heads up, we had a slightly large problem last year with a construction company that was working in the S-turns. That allowed us to get like 30 to 50 calls every morning and every evening.
That turns on.
That was the Excel. When they,
Oh, yeah, right out there. for
Right,
sure, yeah.
and I hope I saw that you're looking at starting about 8:30 and ending about 4:30. I just want to make sure that was brought up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why CDOT has those requirements about they're not going to take calls either. About the thing, and I think it's pretty standard to avoid disruption during rush hour.
They were supposed to do that last year and they just did whatever they wanted.
I know. I
I'll
said
give you the name of who did it if you need.
Yeah, started riding my bike. I can't ride my bike because I hurt my knees.
Yeah. I mean, it was pleasant, shall we say.
I hear you.
And the traffic's backed up. There's still rush hour at 8:30. I mean, it's still, that's a pretty.
Problem is, there's certain, if you say 10 to 3, then by the time you mobilize equipment and just dig a hole, you're filling it back in and not anything done. And then we're working into fall starting now, so it's a balance between work hours, duration, of course, try to hit. So I hear you loud and clear. I guess my next move, Rob, I'll be talking in the morning.
Yep, we'll talk to Jeff and we'll go from there.
Appreciate you guys' attention today and your consideration, and hear you loud and clear on when we think something's coming. We'll get in front of you sooner.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
Next up, special presentations. We had a 2026 community survey results.
That's fine. Yeah, so Cindy and we have our consultant Magellan for this.
She's online, Jay, she won't be here in person. So yes, Courtney with Magellan Strategies is joining us, and I'm just gonna let her briefly talk through some of the key highlights, and we'll have a brief moment for Q&A, but I just want to preface that she is on a timeline and needs to be off at a certain time. So.
We can keep it quick.
Thank you.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so thank you, Cindy. My name is Courtney Sievers. I work with Magellan Strategies. We are a public opinion research firm, actually based out of Broomfield, Colorado. We conducted not only your 2024 survey, but this year's survey. And I know we're kind of on a time crunch here, so I'm going to go through just a few slides and some of the key findings, and then open it up for questions that you all may have. As I know you've gotten the presentation in your packet, I believe, And I know there's a lot here to go through, and so I want to give you plenty of time to ask any questions while I'm available. But just to kind of go over the methodology and how we did it, the survey was conducted from April 9th to May 11th, so almost just over a month there. The survey interviewed 145 adult residents that live within the town of Minturn, which gave us a margin of error of 7.47%. The survey was conducted online, in which we invited residents with that text message there on the left, invited them to participate in the online survey, and they received a text message from a voter file sample that we used to send those text messages, and each text message had a unique link inviting them to participate. And so with that unique link, we were able to make sure that only the respondent that got that text message was the one that was completing it. However, due to the size of Minturn and due to the fact that we're trying to get as many residents to participate as possible, I also worked with Cindy in which we sent out links through the newsletter, through door hangers. We had a QR code on the door hangers that I believe were sent out the end of April, beginning of May, that first week of May, I believe. Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong. But each of those door hangers had a QR code also inviting them to participate the survey. We also had paper surveys within town buildings, in which we had one respondent take that paper survey as well. And so the survey was offered in multiple sources and multiple ways for participants to participate. And on top of that, it was a bilingual survey. English and Spanish was offered as well. And the survey data is weighted to represent the adult population demographics for the town of Minturn. So jumping into the key findings, I'm going to jump the subjective side, but jumping into the key findings, really these are the three most top kind of key findings that came out of the survey this year. Residents highly value Minturn's quality of life. This is one of the best numbers that I've seen as rating a place as a place to live. Residents overwhelmingly rated Minturn as a good place to live, 98% saying excellent or good with that. And so that is a high number. That's a very good number to see. You also had strong numbers on quality of life, safety, community inclusiveness. However, the one thing that kind of was a difference here is 39% of respondents agreed that growth and development was being managed appropriately, and preserving Minturn's small town character emerged as one of the most important future priorities. And what I mean by that is throughout this whole entire survey, no matter what the verbatim response was, no matter what the question was, that overlying theme of maintaining Minturn's small town character and maintaining that just small community feel definitely was throughout this whole entire survey as you look through these results. Second there, and one thing that's just that key finding as well, is growth and development and housing are kind of that central policy tension facing the town now as well as in the future. A lot of residents talked about concerns of overdevelopment, density, traffic, infrastructure, and water supply as those top issues. They did mention, however, a strong support for additional housing for local workers, those mixed use developments and redevelopment of underused priorities. And they also did mention expanding local business space. But one thing that I want to point out that's another key finding from this survey is even though residents look for those things and look for additional housing for local workers, for those mixed developments, even though they're looking for those things, they really do strongly oppose increasing building height as well as density in certain areas. And those numbers were high 62% opposed, especially that building height. And that really comes back to just maintaining that small town feel, that character changing. They don't want that large scale or character changing development. And so that's a second kind of key theme that came through here. And again, really overlying that Minturn small town character feel. Third and not last by any means, but water infrastructure and transportation are definitely the current concerns that are most frequently mentioned throughout the entire survey. And those are the concerns that are happening right now, including concerns about the new water treatment plant, rising water costs, just water reliability, and who pays for those infrastructure upgrades. A lot of residents also talked about speeding and traffic, as well as sidewalks and pedestrian connectivity. And then just first and foremost, infrastructure maintenance as the town moves forward over the next couple of years. And those were really the top 3 key findings throughout the whole entire survey. But one thing that I also want to touch on real quick as we go through here is this first question that we asked on the survey. This is a question that we like to ask on all surveys, especially community surveys, is in your own words, what are the top 2 or 3 issues or priorities you think the town of Minturn should focus on over the next few years? And this slide, as well as the next slide, really kind of go over those top issues that residents mentioned. And again, these are very similar throughout the whole entire survey, and knowing and understanding the issues that are first and foremost on residents' minds really kind of help you understand the rest of these results. And so first and foremost, by far mentioned the most was, again, water supply, the water treatment plant, and high water costs, what that infrastructure is going to look like and who's going to pay for it. This was kind of the top issue in 2024 as well. But I would say this went to a whole new level and being just by far the most mentioned issue that took place in 2026. Second issue in 2024 was housing, where this year it came back to that small town character, growth and overdevelopment, and many just again talking about housing developments, density, that higher building, the increase in height, and again, maintaining that small town identity for the town of Minturn. Affordable housing there is third, and these are really in order, but not specific to gaps or anything like that. But affordable housing, keeping locals in town, again, mentioning that how affordable housing is a major priority, especially for those renters, younger residents, and then most importantly, keeping those local workers in town and giving them the option to have that affordable housing is definitely a concern among residents. And many talked about concern about second homes, vacation rentals, developments, and what that looks like in the future. Fourth here, again, is just traffic, speeding, and road safety. That, again, is one of the higher themes that came through on these top issues. And again, these 4 issues are very similar to what we saw in 2024. Oops. To round it out, again, kind of sidewalks, walkability, that goes with hand in hand with roads and streets, talking about connectivity there throughout the whole entire town. And then not least by any mean here is downtown businesses, that economic vitality, what that looks like, and what that means is support when residents are talking about it is supporting those small businesses while avoiding those over commercialization options. And so you can see throughout these verbatim responses just kind of some of those differences, again, kind of coming back to that overall theme of keeping Minturn's small town feel and small town character. And then again, talking more about infrastructure improvements and maintenance, and just talking about the need for those infrastructure improvements. And then again, talking about community character within the realm of recreation and community events. And so those are really some top issues that as you read through these responses, as you read through these survey results, you can kind of understand when you understand the order of these issues and where voters' minds are at, and not voters, residents' minds are at. You can really have a feel of why these numbers throughout the rest of the survey kind of are the way they are, and how these issues validate kind of the numbers that took place. But I know we are on a short time crunch, so I want to give you all enough time for questions if you have questions. So I'll open it up to questions, but I do have the presentation open as well if we need to jump anywhere.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
You said you did 2024. Were we fairly in line with what we actually answers in 2024 versus 2026?
Yeah, a lot of the questions we kind of shifted how we asked them. So a lot of the questions didn't have a full apples to apples comparison. But when you're looking at quality of life, when you're looking at these issues, when you're looking at some of the housing questions that we did, very much in line with what we saw in 2024.
Thank you.
It sounds like the main difference is that there's more concern about growth.
More concern about growth and more concern about water. Yep.
As far as growth goes, and then changing seems like density and height is a thing. Is that something that we're taking into consideration on chapter 16 and not changing that?
I mean, that's up to you, to provide guidance to staff.
I know that we're working on it now, but when it comes to us, I probably will be one that'll vote against it just because
we know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, everybody else in town knows too. It just isn't me. I'm trying to go off of the people elected us in for the position. I mean, they don't want it, you know, maybe you're a contractor and wants it, but the town doesn't. I mean,
Well, yeah.
What's chapter 16?
Building zone.
codes.
So they're diametrically opposed ideas. If we want to drive costs down and not do $4 million developments, we need to increase density. And we have 193 homes proposed in an area that is going to drive the costs down. And when we have a acre parcel that can only have single family homes, it is going to drive the cost up to 3 to 4 million. It's a pure numbers, square footage, and cost per square foot.
But you also got to look at the people that live here, Spence. That's not what they want.
I understand that, but then they don't want any. Then they talk about affordability. So when we talk about affordability, we need to talk about
double-edged sword.
Exactly. So we need to figure out the path that we want, and then they need to be okay with one or the other. You can't have both affordability and then also low density.
It's really hard to get affordability with the price of it's construction now. I mean, people think you might get a $200,000 home. That I think those days are gone.
There's no way you're going to have affordable housing in Minturn without a major subsidy from someone or from someone. It's just not going to happen. And everybody wants affordable housing, but they want other things more. And, it's kind of fairy tale thinking.
Sorry, well, these are really good points. Can we ask questions about the survey? Just in respect for her time.
Well, I encourage you in future surveys to do more prioritizing questions. Either or questions of, are you willing to do this if it results in that type of questions? And I think that would provide us with the best quality of information. Because I think that's the problem, everybody wants everything, of course.
Well, we tried to do that, Lynn, like, I think because me and Cindy spent a lot of time on this, and I feel like I specifically was the one that worded, like, thinking about Minturn's community needs from the following statements, please indicate your support. Would the town of Minturn make the following changes to address community needs such as housing and employment? And 78% of people said yes, they strongly support, or they do support it, 47% strongly. And then when we asked, thinking about Minturn's community needs, would you like mixed-use buildings that combine housing and commercial space? 80% were supportive, 34% strongly. But then when we threw out the next question about would you support modest increases in building height or density, it was no. So it's like we want it, but we don't. And you see those contradictions throughout.
That's the whole.
Right.
I think it revealed this is better survey results than we thought. There were better questions than there were much better questions than there were 2 years ago.
Yeah, I thought they were too.
But I think we could get even better if we would ask tougher questions.
Like, just give me an example, maybe real quick.
Like,
More specific?
Or if you combine those, would you like affordable housing or would you like less density?
should we, are you in favor of affordable housing if it results in significantly greater density in the town of Minturn, for example?
Or I guess we could be more specific about, well, what kind of density are we talking about and where are we talking about it? We didn't get that granular, but we could look at doing that.
But, people want managed growth. It's clear people want managed growth. But they want growth that you don't really see.
When they say managed growth, they mean that.
That is true. The term managed growth often means nothing.
Can I jump into? Sorry, Lynn, can I jump in? It's Cindy. I was just going to say, I don't want to cut you off, but Rob and I can definitely, when the next survey comes around, we can work really closely with the Magellan team to fine tune these questions. And they have a lot of experience in this realm as well with so many other communities. So I'm sure we can work together to get, and we can have a committee from council if we would like to do that, to drill down in some of these questions.
Yeah, and
I feel that these questions was better than the ones in 2024.
Yeah. I think it's a timeline thing, and maybe we could work with Courtney next year or the next time we do this to kind of work more ahead because there's a lot of back and forth because we say, hey, what about this? And then Courtney provides a lot of feedback about how that works in the survey and provides some recommendations. So maybe that's our goal next time.
Well, and one thing that I just wanted to point out to kind of answer your question and follow with what Cindy said is when we do a community survey like this, we're touching on so many different topics and we're trying to cover a lot of issues on full town services. We do a ton of housing work. We've done a ton of housing work up in the valley that we have touched on across the board. And it's very contradictory on what voters want or what residents want, especially if you're going towards a ballot type thing. And so looking at potentially a survey strictly on housing will allow you to go dive deeper into some of those questions that you're really looking to get at. And so it's just a matter of timeline and what you all are looking to get out of it and where that community survey goes.
And I also think it would be important to ask questions about different areas because
Geographically.
what?
Geographically.
Geographically,
Yeah.
because I think that devil's in the details. I mean, everybody thinks growth in Dow's Junction is just fine. That may or may not ever happen, you know. Growth's fine as long as it's there. Growth in the middle of town, people are generally opposed to. Growth in these new forest tracts that we may potentially acquire from the Forest Service and the trade, 12-acre or 14-acre parcels that are fairly pristine and growth in those areas, affordable housing in those areas, I think would be more controversial, just like growth in Malloy Park is more controversial because of all the other environmental implications.
That's good. Good idea. Excellent. Anything else?
I would just say, I understand this community survey and she just mentioned, the breadth of it, which is great. However, there's a happy medium. We just highlighted what the priorities are and I guarantee you next 2 years, it'll be the same. So if we neck it down to that and ask hard, I hate to say it, painful, detailed questions along Lynn's line, which is essentially forcing an issue. So the discussion between Spence and Gusty in regards to density, this is the opinion. So if you want more affordable housing, this is what you're going to get. The one we talked about before in the survey that didn't come out in regards to the Highlands parcel and water treatment plan and the cost of your water. So are you in favor of this with the Highlands? And if you are, oh, by the way, this is what it's probably going to cost.
You know, when I got on here, Tom, I was told we're going to be able to build this plant with growth. Well, we did the growth that we had water for.
Right.
We still have a big high water bill. If people think that just adding more density is going to bring the cost down, it isn't, because you actually have to maintain it down the road. So you have a cost associated.
I'm not arguing that at all. My point to you is, as questions come out for folks, they just need to understand all the ramifications. And so I'm using the Highlands, not density. The Highlands discussion we had in regards to, okay, you want to set it aside for this, great. Well, these are the other options. And this is what the town has as potential revenue. And we are now faced with a water treatment plant and a significant debt. These are your options. I'm just pointing out 2 years from now, a year from now, whatever we do, we probably need to help out in regards to the level of detail of questions so voters totally understand.
The other thing I noticed on here was the amount of citizens we had actually gone down Valley. And there's a reason for it. I've lived here my whole life. I know why. They got tired of what Minturn was doing and what Minturn looked like, the cost of Minturn. They all moved down Valley, and a little bit because of the snow. We don't want to run people out of here. I mean, and that's
understood.
Reading the comments and the results, we're doing that. We're actually not making it a place that long-term people want to stay.
Well, and keep in mind, as we do these surveys also, certain decisions are made long ago to include the density of this entire town, as we've already talked about in regards to the additional structures that, for all intents and purposes, the development that ship has sailed in regards to the developments that are either in work or have been approved, to include the Malloy deal that was agreed upon in 2011. So we're just dealing with decisions and ramifications and secondary.
I agree with that.
And so we got to manage it. So the point is to put it to the citizens in hard, painful detail and facts so they can totally understand as opposed to just very broad brush. Those are very good questions. I'm just saying it's time to get down to some serious details that I know are not a big popular option in surveys because of the breadth of the survey. That's the reason it's important to kind of neck it down a bit.
And we already have about 450 units in kind of semi in the works in some kind of planning process.
Right.
So when you talk about new affordable housing,
There's no.
on top of that, in any significant scale, in our little narrow mountain valley, is just one of the change wants to keep its character and that's having traffic problems as it is. It's not very hopeful.
But to your survey, Courtney, I think it was the data's there and we have more questions about what it means than how the survey was set up. So thank you for all the.
Well, and really, like I said, the community survey is that kind of 30,000 foot level that I mean, to be honest with you, gets you all these questions of where the town is looking. And we have capabilities of doing more policy style surveys where you are looking at strictly housing. And the nice thing with doing it online, we can get into those granular details. We've asked those questions before. We've gone into details. We can show pictures of what those projects look like at that point. And so there's a lot more detail that you can go into it. But when you're doing a community survey and you're asking all of these questions, it just gets too long to typically do that type of survey, and where it would be easier to do a housing survey where you can go into those details and ask those questions, or water, even combining those two things. But that's really the one thing that's possible, is you can go deeper into those questions and try and get some of those answers, and give really those descriptions of what those projects could potentially look like.
But maybe just a survey on growth in housing next time.
Do that.
And Gusty, I did have a conversation with Madison about the conversation we had this week about the concerns about the code and those things. And me and Scott and Madison will meet again. And I mean, we have to address the concerns that are in this survey and that you have, and we'll do our best to do that. And we'll make sure that that's a productive conversation.
Thank you.
When we get there. Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to you soon.
All right, we can move on to business items. Number A, 1931 Highway 24, new structure.
Okay, so normally this is a design review, but as part of it, there's some color choices. We went to the planning commission to kind of survey their feedback. And what they said was they were pretty much good with it, although they thought we should go with a lighter roof color. So on the second page of Madison's memo, we were good with the color of the rock for the bottom half of the exterior. Planning Commission recommended keeping the cool grain stone, but suggested, item number 3. For the roof gutters downspout, they recommended we go with cool Sierra tan or cool granite gray for the roof to hopefully avoid the heat generated by a darker roof. Any feedback from council?
Yes. On the water treatment plant, we went with the cool neutral, not water treatment plant, the tank. We went for the cool neutral color. And my goodness, that sticks out. I mean, anywhere hiking around there, it just glares white.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a terrible choice. And I think when you put it in context of people of wanting something that goes away visually, and you something that's in the trees, that there's a lovely blue color in there. And I think that would have made that would make a really lot of sense for the water treatment plant.
My thoughts too were we just had the community survey. It's keep mentoring, funky. And we have complaints about everything looks the same up in.
So the flame red.
And then we went, let's go gray.
Right.
Like what? So I would be, I think the color, lighter colors versus keeping it cooler versus darker, heating it up. That is a conversation we had, but also could we not do gray for everything?
You tell me. We do need to decide tonight, though.
You like the moss green?
I like the, no, I like the gentian blue, and I think that.
Why can't we go camouflage?
That's not in their brochure.
That's not an option.
No, those are all, mix them all together, stripe it.
I think
Go
the
camouflage.
You can tape it out.
I don't want to see it.
The gentian blue. would be
For the roof?
Oh, for the roof?
This is the Bruca one.
For the, no, for the sides, what,
You're talking about the walls.
I'm talking about the wall. The
Didn't we
roof
go
should
with
just be,
the-
but the
want-
roof should be a dark color that goes away, not a light color.
You could probably go like a brownish on the roof and then fade it with the trees.
We're cold, we're a cold climate, you know, we have.
We were a few weeks.
We could use a dark roof, keep us warm.
Pools in gray. For all my friends. You could go to Arctic
I
camp.
mean, ultimately, I think it's tucked away. We don't see much, but.
You don't see much of it where it's at.
No,
Cool granite, cool Sierra tan or cool granite gray.
It's not like the tank on the hill. You see the tank board.
That shines, this white
Yeah,
thing that shines out of the
tank
tree.
sticks out.
Okay, so on the roof, looking at standard wall trim and colors, we have it up on the screen right now. Cool Sierra tan and gray were from the planning commission. Where do we want to go? Just tell me what to do.
pools in gray. Darker.
The concrete tank?
The new,
It's like white, isn't it?
the new,
Yeah.
Even that gray is going to shine white out of the trees. I would go with
for comparison.
color,
What about the gold?
the cool green.
Ooh, strong gold.
The one by,
The one that's up by Frank Medina. So the one that's up by Frank Medina is that tan color.
what do you think, Lynn?
On the colors up there, I'm like kind of liking the cool green best. I think the cool zinc gray will go white.
The leaf green or the Bermuda green?
What?
Leaf green's the center Bermuda green. They're both
Cool
cool.
hemlock green.
The cool hemlock green, right? It's kind of, that would be close to the gray, but it could blend with the trees.
Green.
It's not like a real bright, boldy color.
Cool hemlock green for the roof?
Works from.
Okay. Seems like a compromise. The planning commission said, let me go back to the letter. Keeping the cool gray stone color on the exterior wall panels. Do we want to keep that? That is the cool gray stone thermal wall system. That is, I think Cindy, are you running this online? Yeah. That one, the middle one on the second column.
So is that the color of our stone that was over on the left?
So the top stone is the recommended by the planning commission, and then the second one down, number on the middle column, that's the cool gray.
Oh, okay.
And these are showing up on the TV weird.
I mean, that one's there.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it is too.
All right. Because that top color is really a green. It doesn't show that on TV.
Almost looks black.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah. It looks that way on my end too. I'm not sure why. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe it's the PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we're good. Just a motion by council to approve the design with the recommendations we discussed.
I'll make a motion to approve the designs for the water treatment plant with the colors selected.
Second.
Motion by Gusty, second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion passes. That direction.
Okay.
Excellent.
And then we struck C, so we're on D.
Struck B or on C, yeah.
Struck
Resolution
B, C.
2026 resolution authorizing construction administration contract with HDR.
Okay, so we had some conversations with HDR. I tried to go through I had a big table of things that I tried to address with them, and then I put a new table in here, the response, those clarification items. Some of those things, HDR's response was they didn't do like a very hard estimation of specific hours and times, which then means they're going to be accountable for finishing this within the scope that they presented. And as long as Mr. Sawyer is good with that and making sure that we have contract language that we feel confident in. I don't really have any other concerns. Some of the items like the internet service, the special inspections, we're going to have to take care of those on our own. And then the cost is a little bit higher because we told them to put in the lodging. We cannot provide that for them at this time. Questions for staff or additional concerns?
Good work getting this sorted out.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, if there's no questions, we can take a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2326, approving amendment 5 with HDR Engineering Inc. for construction administration services for the Minturn Water Treatment Plant project in an amount not to exceed $964,234, subject to final review and approval by the town attorney.
I'll second that.
A motion by Spence, second by Gusty, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Our town attorney just lost power, so we're going to see if he can get back on mobile. He must have Excel.
If that makes sense.
I think he's a cross guy.
Yeah. Good.
So, do we need him?
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. All right, so proceed on D.
All right. We moving on to ordinance number 5, series 2026, a second reading on collection of a convenience fee on payments subject to processing fees and the collection of dishonored payment fees and penalties. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
The second reading of an ordinance, as I think we went through it in detail at the last hearing. Essentially, as a result of some litigation the town was in, together with doing a general review of provisions of your code associated with assessment of fees and penalties for various charges that the town is authorized to collect. We determined that it would be better to gather information under one section of the code that exists in different sections of the code, and to add some definition around a few items. As you can see in the ordinance, we address late fees, interest on unpaid amounts, and otherwise create the process, or better define the process by which those are assessed. So unfortunately right now, I just got my computer back up and running. I don't have that directly in front of me, but if someone has a specific question, I can get it pulled up.
Nothing's changed since the first reading.
No changes since first reading, that's correct.
Questions?
I move to approve.
Gotta open up public comment first. Good. I liked it though. All right, I'm gonna open this up for public comment. Anybody wish to speak on the fee schedule? And Cindy, anybody online?
No one with their hand raised.
All right. Seeing none in the audience, I will close public comment, and if there's no further questions from council, I will take a motion.
Make a motion to approve town of Minturn, Colorado ordinance number 05, series 2026. Ordinance of the town of Minturn, Colorado allow for the collection of convenience fee on payments subject to processing fees and the collection of dishonored payment fees and penalties. Second reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Tom, second by Spence, and a roll call, please.
Aye.
Spence, aye.
Dusty, aye.
Eric, aye. Motion passes. Thank you all. We switched A and B, so Little Beach Park Playground design proposals.
Get anybody online, Cindy?
I have one person on Zoom currently.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, go ahead.
Okay. So I am going to share my screen. But before I do, just a brief recap for council. So we spoke at the last meeting, and we just wanted to come back to you with some final designs. And what I will add is we were able to get a lot more play equipment in the play area than what we initially thought based on our space. So I think that is great news. There are a lot of play features in what is being proposed here, and I just want to show you some colors and design and go over cost real quick. So bear with me. Okay. Can you see my screen?
I get so clear.
Was that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool. Okay, so we have a couple different color schemes we can do here, but so there are a couple different, I guess, play designs being proposed, but they're both pretty similar. So this is kind of going back to the things we talked about with wanting to have two towers, one being the tall tower. This has multiple slides, multiple climbing features, and it has nature-inspired play. It has some slackline, interactive play, musical play, and accessibility features. There's quite a bit packed into this, and you have some printouts that Rob gave you as well, but this is just one angle or one view, so I'm going to go show you a few more. This, where the towers are, would be the north end of the playground, because that's where it's widest, and then it would kind of narrow down toward the south end of the playground, and that's where you see more of those independent items such as the spinner, the seesaw. There's some musical sensory games and some of those things down there, but I'm gonna scroll through a few of the different views so you can see, and I'm happy to answer questions. I didn't get this until late this afternoon, so I apologize, but I can send you, I have basically a description of all the equipment in this proposal. And we can also look at another color scheme, but this has, like I said, quite a bit packed into it. I'll go through some more views, but there's multiple slides, multiple climbing features, as we mentioned. There's some different rope features. And let me just show you a few different views. I think there's actually 4 total slides in here with the 2 different towers. You can probably see toward the left, kind of the rope leading to the second, from the first to the second tower. There are, I want to say, 6 different climbing structures. And it also, I'm probably not explaining this very well, but it kind of goes, I guess, in order from right to left of like age groups. So the whole piece of equipment, or I guess pieces of equipment, will accommodate a multitude of age ranges, but it is geared toward that 5 to 12 range with some additional things in there. Here are some additional views for you.
Cindy, one thing while you're going through it that I noticed is it looks like there's like a rolly bar slide on the, yeah, kind of like that brown, exactly where your
Yes,
cursor
this
is.
thing, yeah.
Those little rolly things, kids get their fingers pinched in them a lot. So if we
Oh,
can make it
interesting.
flat
Okay.
surface, I think then toddlers can use it and that'd be a lot safer for everybody.
Okay, so maybe get rid of the roller slide and just have a regular slide there.
Yeah, like a nice
Okay.
wide one for kids. And
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's good feedback. I'm sure we can remove that. That shouldn't be a big deal. And let me see. These are some additional sensory panels. Here's another view, just to give you a different view. And let me, and this is the layout, obviously. So you can see at the north end, sorry, again, most of the larger structures would be on the north end because that's where we have the most width. One thing that Rob and I spoke about earlier is that we don't have a lot of room for swings currently. Again, just because the amount of space that you have to have, the use zone that's required and free space around it. But we could look at adding something later to a different area. For example, in the north end of where we have the handicap parking down there, there is a little bit of space there that could be looked at in the future for swings, and or I don't know if it's or we could look at putting back a half court of some sort in the future as well in another phase. We didn't have the budget or really the I guess, the time for it in this phase, but we could definitely look at doing something in that space in the future when we go into the next phases of Little Beach Park improvements. And I'm going to, bear with me, I'm going to close this just to show you the other color scheme.
So is this taking over the basketball court?
So the basketball court's already gone because we got rid of it when we did the retaining wall, Spence.
Yeah.
So the basketball court's already gone, and we really can't fit a court within the play area. It would just leave us with nothing for a playground.
Yep.
So, but we do have, again, there is some space on the other side of the play pit that is not currently being touched, but it's small. But in meeting with Rocky Mountain Recreation, who is doing the playground for us, they thought there was enough room to do like a half court of some type. So we could definitely look at bringing something back if that's what the community desires. Or we could look at other play features if that's what people want to see. That would be in the next phase. And then, and this is just another color scheme. I think for equipment wise, the first design has more features and more of what we need and is a better value than this design. But I wanted to show you the different colors to see if you had a preference on the lighter versus the darker colors.
One.
Yeah, dark, that light green is.
What's that?
Preference for the darker?
Yeah, darker, but also more color.
Just the color.
Okay, I can ask for more color. Then we can probably throw some different elements.
I don't think we.
Well, sorry, Lynn, the dark colors are they get hot really fast, so the kids will burn their skin.
We like colors, but mix the colors up, make it fun. Looks like
I can see if they can, yeah, I can see if they can, I'm sure they can mix some other colors in, especially more on the, maybe some of the panels and the other features.
we're surrounded by trees. Do we need the fake plastic trees hanging up there? I think the animals would be more fun if it's the same price.
I don't think it is the same price.
Okay. If more colors costs more.
Not necessarily. I think we can get more colors. Like, I don't know if you can see my cursor, maybe in like some of the panels. And to Eric's point, I want to be careful though on like slides or things that kids are climbing on. Darker colors will get hotter fast.
Like the slides could be light colors, but they're just not that light green. And mix up the colors, make it colorful.
And does anyone else on council have any thoughts on the colors?
Whatever.
Okay, so I'll go back to them with, let me just open up the other design.
Maybe, what could we do, Cindy, like as far as maybe something that's light, that's not the green, that's complementary? Maybe I think that's what we need to look at.
Yeah, so you're saying,
Orange?
yeah. What's that?
Gray.
Orange or yellow?
Just make it all gray.
Yellow and mix up, just a mix of colors.
Just go back.
Just
Kinda
a better
the
mix of
slides were
colors.
two different colors.
Go back to the WTP color palette.
Just like,
Oh.
so it's fun,
I love how much you packed in there, though. I think there's a lot of features that.
Yeah, and I'll,
Yeah, that is a big improvement. I'm not going back to.
That's a small spot where two on that pitch, good.
And this is all with budget in mind.
this is, this is for equipment. We are at around 306K for equipment. There will be some other costs for installation. I don't have exact numbers on that yet, but I think we budgeted 350 for the playground, but then there also have been some engineering and other associated costs that are playing into this. So I will certainly report back with final costs, but we should be pretty in line.
And if we can get more colors, the more color, and it doesn't cost more, the more colors, the better.
Okay, I will work on more colors.
The gallery.
And then let me just make sure if anyone is online that.
You get your finger stuck?
Yes.
I've gotten my finger stuck in one of those before. Yes.
You want that? That's good.
I'm gonna stop sharing for just a moment because I can't see if anyone has their hand raised. I just want to look at the Zoom.
We do have some people here.
Yeah, there's a couple people in
Okay.
the audience that
Some
might,
very strong opinions, I think.
yeah.
Does anyone want to chime in on the playground design?
I think so. We're working up some confidence.
Just like we.
He's normally so outspoken.
My intern is eclectic and have lots of colors. I think the kids would like it better if there are lots of colors.
Okay, I will try to get more colors, more variety of colors that aren't too dark and hot.
Well, you just mix all the colors. Every slide is a different color.
The slides of the playground. I like the slides of the playground.
Do you want more colors, Levi?
The green stuff.
The green stuff.
He's wearing green.
Dark.
Green shirt on.
He likes
The dark.
The dark green.
He likes to slide a little hot dad because he goes faster.
Okay. Any other input?
More
So
slides.
More slides.
more slides. We got 4 slides.
Good feedback.
Put this in.
Okay, so
We got one more. Cindy.
okay.
What do you think?
He likes it.
More slides. Okay, so
My slides.
Eric, we'll get rid of the roller slide for safety reasons, and then we'll look at more variety of colors.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a good direction. And Lynn, I was thinking of, that fence that's over back on Williams Street, or that alleyway next to I think Robert Creasy's house. He's got like she has that really colorful like rainbow sun painting.
I know.
Oh, there's like a really nice like multicolored thing there, but yeah, that was
A
I think
rainbow.
yeah, John.
the one on Meadow Lane.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good feedback.
I like that back helmet. That would work.
Just to go completely off tangent since you brought her up, whatever happened to our artistic crosswalks over by?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we kicked it because of the weather and then the unavailability of the artist, and then I never heard back from them.
Okay, sure.
You might still be.
Yeah, but they live in town. I know right over there. So I'll hit it.
Cool. Thank you, Cindy.
And Cindy's done an immense amount of work. She's been our project manager on this basically. And then the public works staff went above and beyond to get that giant rock moved, which had a huge concrete foundation on it. So I really appreciate everything Cindy's done because I haven't had the time. But Cindy's been able to really keep this going. So I really appreciate that.
Great.
I left out kudos to Public Works because a tree fell on the northbound lane of 24 south of the boneyard this afternoon due to the winds, and they were dealing with the shed. Mike got guys out real quick because it was a serious safety problem going blind turn. They took care of it.
They're extremely responsive.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Cindy, for coming up with such a stupendous playground.
Absolutely. I'll get back to you with final information and also estimated timeline once we have it.
Thank you.
I did get a lot of questions about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know residents are excited to get that built.
Yes.
I get asked that all the time. Awesome. Fun. We've got a fun presentation, Minturn housing strategy.
Yes. Let me just share my screen. And it's forcing me to quit and reopen the app. So just one moment. How does council feel about taking a 3-minute bathroom break while I get this reloaded?
I feel very strongly about it, like more slides.
Take a break and reconvene in 3 minutes.
Does anybody need anything?
Thanks for the snacks.
Ice? We're doing okay? You need anything? Cool.
We will now reconvene. Sorry, now reconvene the meeting with the Minturn Housing Strategy presentation. Go, Jessica.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Copeland, and I've actually had the chance to meet all of you who are here tonight. But in case you didn't know, I am the intern with Minturn this season. And I also just want to start by saying thank you so much for letting me speak this evening. So this presentation is a continuation of the memo that Rob brought to council in early March about the opportunity to join a multi-jurisdictional regional housing authority. And during that conversation, council indicated a preference for a 90-10 hybrid model, where 10% of the funds gathered would go towards the RHA for things like monitoring, compliance, and administration of programs. And then 90% of those funds come back to the town for us to use for locally determined housing solutions. This presentation is a deeper dive into what we could do with those funds. So also whether the potentially available opportunities line up with our housing goals and objectives, and ultimately how council would like staff to continue communications with those preliminary RHA jurisdictions. So real quick, we have our presentation outline. First up, we're going to talk about Minturn's identity, and then we're going to look at data from the housing needs analysis to see where we actually stand. Next, there will be some questions to consider about the content we covered and time to ask any questions regarding that content as well. And then a quick note about questions and comments. I ask that you please hold them for the appropriate times in the presentation, and then also to please keep them relevant to the material being discussed. After that, we will look back on what we've done so far in terms of housing, and then take a deeper dive on what the Regional Housing Authority actually entails and how those opportunities might line up with our housing goals and objectives before we finally end with key considerations from council. This was in your memo, but I just want to bring it up again now so that you all have them in mind as we move through the presentation. So first up, we're going to start with Minturn's history. We are a historically working class community rooted in the railroad, mining, and farming industries. And then we transitioned to a more tourist-based economy with Vail and Beaver Creek opening next door and those previous industries that grounded us slowly closing. I also want to point out on this slide, 1982, we established home rule government. And I've talked to some folks around town about the context of why we maybe made this decision. And it's most likely that Minturn wanted to continue to manage its own affairs and also maintain its own identity despite increasing pressure from newcomers to the area with the resorts opening next door. So next up, we have Minturn's identity. And I do want to pause for a second here and say that this is what I came up with from RTAP workshops, reading things like the Housing Action Plan and Community Plan, talking to people around town, and also my own experience here, but I want to take a moment and see if there's anything y'all would like to add. And if not, then we can keep rolling. So from these facets of our identity, I think that they grow pretty directly out of our early history as laborers who work hard, invest in one another, and create Minturn as a place where community members can grow old and then also watch the next generation grow up. Next up, we're going to go over some data from the housing needs analysis. And I want you all to think about whether or not these 5 or so trends line up with who we hold to be as our identity. First up, we have housing units built pre-1970. So Minturn, highlighted in blue, has the highest percent of homes along the I-70 corridor and also all of Eagle County that were built pre-1970. And I'm not saying this in an attempt to say that we should tear them all down, but actually that we have authentic pre-ski resort mountain town charm. On the other hand, this also makes almost half of our town vulnerable to redevelopment. Unless a 50-plus-year-old home has been meticulously maintained, it will likely require a lot of money in rehabilitation for things like energy efficiency, appliance updates, or hazards like mold and lead paint. And if a second homeowner were to purchase that property, it's much more likely that they would tear it down and build something new instead of preserving the exterior charm that contributes to our community. Next up, we have year-round occupancy. And as you can see, from 2010 to 2022, we went from 80% to 69%. This leads us to believe that more units are either vacant, short-term rentals, or second homes. And when I saw that year-round occupancy was decreasing, my first question was why? And to answer why, I looked at the median income, and then I also went into the census and broke out the income range from those time periods also. So starting with housing needs analysis data on the left, the median income decreased by 15%, 2010 to 2015, and then increased about 62%, 2015 to 22. At first glance, it might seem like Minturn residents recovered from the dip in 2015 and started doing even better than before in 2022. However, when you look at the median income broken into a range, it tells a different story, one where Minturn is transforming. It's unlikely that those households composed of small business workers, teachers, and service workers making less than $150K in 2015 jumped up 1 to 2 income brackets by 2022. It's more likely that those folks sold their property and moved somewhere more affordable. We were talking earlier about how a lot of folks are moving down Valley, and the data from the housing needs analysis also supports that. So I also had the chance to talk this out a little bit with Planning Commission, and anecdotally, they shared that this time period around 2015 to 2022 was when a lot of older residents were selling their houses and moving away. And then this is also the time when remote work became more popular and people were moving here for the lifestyle. So if you combine these two things that were going on at the time and couple that with the decrease in year-round occupancy, the data supports an interpretation that the median income of 2022 reflects the income of folks who could afford to move in, not existing residents doing better. Ultimately, this leaves us with a Minturn that is transitioning from a largely year-round middle income community to a wealthier, less permanently occupied one. Next up, we have median sale price and rent by location. And this is specific to non-resort areas. So the housing needs analysis has a list of resort areas that are intended for second homeowners and short-term rentals. So these charts exclude those areas to get a better picture of the locals market. And even though on the last slide, we established that median income went up by a little more than 60%, 2015 to 2022, the table here on the left shows that Minturn's housing prices skyrocketed by 125% during that same period. So that essentially leaves us with home prices that are rising 2 times faster than median income. Then if we turn our attention to the table on the right, we also see that rent increased by nearly 90% during that same 2015 to 2022 period. So the result is that households who want to stay in Minturn short term have to use up any potential income gains on rent. And this combined with the skyrocketing home values, it effectively locks out middle income earners long term. Last but not least, in terms of the data, this chart shows the affordable home price for a 2-person household based on Eagle County area median income levels. So the AMI at 100% for Eagle County when this chart was made in 2023 was about $99,000. And then the median sale price for the different localities is represented by the perpendicular lines, and Minturn is in orange up there. And the bars at the bottom represent affordable home prices at different AMI levels. The space between the bars and the perpendicular lines represent the gap between what is affordable and what a home actually costs. So based on this chart, Minturn has the second highest affordability gap countywide behind Edwards. A 2-person household in Eagle County must make nearly 300% AMI, or a little less than $297,000 per year to buy a median priced home in Minturn. For a household closer to 100% AMI, an affordable home is closer to $400,000. So that means that median income households face about a $950,000 gap between what they can afford and what a home actually costs. So as our neighbors move away because they can't afford to stay in the race any longer, and also local businesses suffer because we don't have the year-round community to sustain them, the housing affordability gap is ultimately eroding Minturn's identity as a tight-knit community with people who live and work locally. Now is a time when you all can consider these questions that are on the slide. And then also you can ask any questions related to the material that we've talked about so far. Yes.
So this is a very good analysis that you're doing. But I think we have to be really careful at analyzing data and making sure we're comparing apple to apple. Because this data would have Minturn having by far the highest income in the county. Because the way, because the people who responded, and because there aren't that many second homes in Minturn. It makes Minturn look much more expensive and much more affluent than Vail, for example. And that's certainly not true. One of the reasons that median household income may have gone up so much in Minturn is because I think one of the things that's happened is that people have more roommates. So you have bigger non-related households. Minturn, unlike all these other communities, has almost no apartment stock. So we have, I'm sure if you looked at it, by far the highest percentage, certainly in the upper Vail Valley, of single family housing. And so naturally the rents are higher. But I think what's going on is not just the fault of second homers and short-term rentals, but people are, because of the cost, people are taking on more and more roommates, and no one rents a place with a spare room anymore without having a roommate. And I think those kinds of factors have to be taken into consideration. I certainly don't believe that Minturn is a wealthier community than Vail, or Avon, or Edwards. But I think that's what the data, and I've seen this data before, it's been around for a while, would have you believe.
Yeah, I think that if you consider maybe instead of median income, the average income of the different communities, then Vail or Avon might be higher, but also these charts are referring to the non-resort communities. And so, and so the median, it does reflect that Minturn has the highest median income, but I do agree with what you're saying in terms of us being mostly single family homes and there not being as many apartments.
That's a non-resort community. What part of Vail is resort and what part of Vail is not resort? I mean, the devil's in all those definitions are become really important to understand that properly.
Yes. So the housing needs analysis, I should have included it in this presentation. It does include a specific list of what neighborhoods are considered resort versus non-resort communities. So for example, if you were to look at Avon or maybe unincorporated Eagle County, Arrowhead would be one of those resort communities. And so I don't think that that would be included in this table right here.
I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not sure how you define what's resort community and what's not a resort community, unless you're just taking out the ski in, ski out type properties?
The housing needs analysis used a methodology based on probably the development plans for these neighborhoods. And and so that's how they determined it. But I can get you that information after the meeting if you're interested.
I would be interested in, and I think a lot of these communities that started out as non-resort communities that turned into resort communities. The definition of what is a resort community has been getting broader and broader over the years, and it may not be reflected because of the prevalence of short-term rentals and the shortage of close-in resort houses.
Like, just, can I ask you a question then, like, data aside and the nuances of how it's measured? Why don't you talk about what's behind the question? What are you concerned about with, because there's the data and the nuances of that, but why don't you talk about maybe a little more emotionally?
That's a good question. I'm concerned about identifying Minturn as having a particular greater problem.
Are you concerned about
with respect to affordable housing?
Are you just worried about us taking on a burden more than we should?
I am very much worried about that. I'm very much worried about comparing Minturn to other communities that have a lot more available land and don't have quite the traffic problems, don't have as much the available developed land requires is wilderness area. Minturn's in such a crowded little valley. I would love to see that us have more affordable housing, but doing any kind of large scale project, other than say a Downs Junction, I just don't see as feasible. I don't think that's what people want.
Right. And I think you can speak to that.
I will get to that a little bit later in the presentation, but that's really not necessarily where I'm going with this. It's more so just sort of establishing that other folks might have more land and less traffic issues. But there's still things that we could do to preserve the housing stock that currently exists as affordable for people who live and work in the valley. It's more about addressing like what we already have and what we can do with that without necessarily adding more big developments.
Subsidies to rehabilitate existing houses.
Yeah, or partnering with other organizations that are doing deed restriction programs, or partnering with an organization like Habitat for Humanity. And so, sorry, was somebody else speaking? Tom, were you? Oh, no, that's it.
I just, so the median household issue was an issue before with the census and data in, data out. Not gonna drill down on that. It was a discussion, obviously, when we started talking about qualifying for certain things. And I think with the US Census, the problem was first homeowners versus second homeowners, and they weren't counting. Vail is a shining example. That aside, the key piece in here that you highlight that is troubling, that obviously leads to your second part of this, is the explosion in sales price and median rental and price from 22 to current day. So if anybody else says anything otherwise, yes, please proceed with that, because that is hugely problematic.
Well, I mean, I think a subsidy program would be great.
Well, I think that's where,
yes,
if you segue to your second part, you put those solutions up there and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Takeaway I got out of it on the screen was 2010, it showed us at 80% occupancy, and then now we're down to 69, no primary residents. 2010, that's kind of when the economy started going down the tank, because I ended up buying a foreclosure really cheap at the other end of town and just used it for a rental. But what's happened was people left, and I kind of made that point during our presentation on the community survey. they were able to get a good amount of money for their place here in Minturn. Down Valley, Eagle and Gypsum, they were building new homes. They were able to sell their place, take that money, pay off cash on a new home, and pretty much retire. And that's just because we had a high, basically the values were so high. And down there, it wasn't. Right now, it's kind of equalizing a little bit. Their prices are up again now too, kind of close to ours. So I don't think that's a tool that people's trying to use now, is to sell in Minturn, move down to Eagle and retire and sell it. So I think the ball's kind of shifted a little bit with their values going up and getting closer to ours.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, especially because as I was making this presentation, I think that because I work for the town of Minturn, I had Minturn residents in mind. But it really is bigger than that. It's an issue valley-wide. And ultimately, we want people to live here who want to be here, and who want to contribute to society, want to start a small business, want to send their kids to school, hang out on the street, chat. And it's increasingly difficult for the people who work to support our community, like the teachers and the nurses and all those folks, to afford a place here. And so it's not even an issue of moving down Valley anymore. It's moving out of Eagle County.
But when they use all these tests, like, available minimum income, it often means that people move into a subsidized house, and then their income rises and they have to leave. And as a result of that, in some counties, from what I've read, a lot of the affordable housing, people would rather not live. They'd rather get a roommate and move into some place where their income can go up without being evicted. And there's so many devil in the details. Or the Malloy housing habitat stuff, their requirements that are nationally set for income are so unrealistically low that any families can't qualify.
And this is something that I will talk about later in the presentation. So is it okay if I put a pin in that really quickly? And then also real quick before we move on, something really generative that came out of discussions with Planning Commission was that we had more time to talk about this, but we talked about like aspects of Minturn's identity that we want to carry into the future. And something that we sort of landed on was like, the next generation, if you have kids here and live here now, it is unlikely, unless they get a really high paying job or inherit a lot of money, that they'll be able to afford to buy a house here when they grow up and want to move back 20 years from now. So I just want to encourage you guys to think about stuff like that. Like, what do we want to preserve 50 years from now to give to the next generation in terms of livability in this wonderful town? Okay. Any more questions? Nope. Okay. Cool. So here we have Minturn's housing history and some big milestones of what we've done so far. And one of the greatest steps we've taken, I wanted to say something about this earlier during the community survey presentation, but we did adopt the 2020 inclusionary housing policy. And so with those 450 some odd units that are coming in the pipeline, any development over 5 units triggers a clause in this policy where a certain percent of those units have to go to people who make less than 120% AMI. And that was lowered from 200% to where it is now in 2024. And I know we were talking about AMI requirements and people maybe getting evicted because they surpassed those limits. But this is a really good start for making sure that there are at least a certain number of units dedicated to lower income folks from the get-go, instead of having to go back and do it retroactively. So before the policy was formally adopted, we have Minturn North, and they voluntarily provided 6 resident occupied deed restricted units in their development. And then after the policy was formally adopted, we have Belden, and they added 20 resident occupied units and 4 price capped deed restricted units. And then following that, In 2026, we also had the first collaboration with Eagle County Good Deeds. And they provided a buy down for a home in Minturn so that somebody could live there. And then the deed is attached to the property in perpetuity. And so that means it has to go to somebody who works and lives in Eagle County. After this inclusionary housing policy, it seems like we lost a little bit of steam in terms of implementing the tools that were identified in the 2019 Housing Action Plan for how we can address the housing issue in Minturn. And I just want to say a quick note. I have in 2023, we signed on to Prop 123 here. That obligates the town to have 33 affordable units created in this jurisdiction by 2026. And if we do that, then we are eligible for further state funding to put towards housing initiatives. And we're really close because as of today, we have 31 deed restricted units, which is 5 to 6% of our total housing stock right now. And if we look back at, I want to direct your attention to the left. I'm going to go more into the right later. So for the sake of time, let's just look at the housing goals. The first goal is to secure 20% of the housing inventory as deed restricted for residents who live and work in the Valley. And we're at 5 or 6% right now. Who knows where we could go in the next few years. And we've made some good progress on number 1 and also number 4 through our inclusionary housing policy. Goal number 3 is addressed in the code update that Scott and Madison have been working on. And to address number 2, we need to get serious about how we want to preserve or create homes for residents at or below 140% AMI, and then maybe even rethink what an appropriate AMI is, or if we even want to go the AMI route because of concerns raised earlier. As for number 5, continuing to monitor year-round residency and creating a new year-round residency goal following the 2020 census, I am asking town staff, have we revisited that recently or no? Setting a new goal for year-round residency.
Yeah.
So we have not done that. But we do have the latest set of housing needs analysis data. So we have the foundation to set a new realistic data-driven goal for what we want year-round residency to look like in town. So how does Minturn stack up to everyone else? This chart isn't totally fair because A, it doesn't capture how impactful the 2020 inclusionary housing policy is, and B, it shows that we can do a lot more. Some of these programs like deed restrictions, down payment assistance, and rental assistance are available to Minturn residents, but the boxes not checked represent that the town does not specifically participate in those programs. Also, while we're here, the programs in gray on the left are a really great summary of resources that currently exist in the Valley. And I'm going to talk about deed restrictions more in depth later in the presentation. But now I want to ask council if there's any of these programs that you're not familiar with and you would like a better explanation for. And I'm sure if you have a question, somebody else does too. So feel free to ask.
I'm wondering which of these programs we could participate in that don't require us raising taxes.
I made a rule for myself at the start of this presentation before I even came into it that I'm not going to talk about funding. For the sake of this, we are just thinking about what the programs are as they exist and pretending that we have already put it on the ballot, people have voted yes, and we have our first year of funding. So short answer is we could keep doing what we're doing and not participate as a municipality in these programs. But I think
you misunderstood my question. My question is, how much do these programs require local funding, local tax funding for us to participate?
if we wanted to participate in a meaningful way, then yes, it would require local funding.
Fee waivers.
With Eagle County having a check on everything except for the bottom one, does that mean we can still qualify? You know, our people that's trying to buy a home in Minturn for their programs?
So for the fee waivers and reductions,
I
I
noticed
guess,
that when they're not checked, but the rest they are.
yeah, I guess that the fee waivers and reductions don't necessarily entail raising local funds to do, but we would be missing out on any potential income gains to go towards housing initiatives by having those fee waivers and reductions. And those fee waivers and reductions, I believe, are usually applied towards deed restricted housing, or some other sort of AMI limited house or home.
All the other ones that they offer, though, we qualify for, though?
Minturn residents do qualify for them. Yes, Minturn residents do qualify for them, but our municipality is not participating in the bigger program. So the pot of money overall that people have access to is smaller.
The bigger program we have to contribute to, though.
The bigger programs we would have, like if we wanted to enter into a partnership with Avon for their Mi Casa deed restriction program. And you know what, I will talk about this in a few slides. So I'll explain how that works in a second. Yeah. Are we good here? Okay, so now we have our Regional Housing Authority toolbox. And this is in the memo, so I'm not going to go super in depth, but I do want to explain the toolbox metaphor a little bit. So if we think of programs like a house and partnerships, funding mechanisms, staffing capacity, and access to a resource hub as tools, those are what we use to build that final deliverable, which is programs. And the partnerships are who we work with to get things done so that we don't have to provide all the resources ourselves. The funding mechanisms are different ways we can coordinate regionally to be more competitive for larger state or federal programs, or dispense money ourselves through our own program. Staffing capacity is necessary for a town like Minturn to handle all the work behind the scenes for any new programs that we're talking about. And a resource hub is, it essentially helps us stay up to date on best practices. And then the last bullet point underneath resource hub, I have here, it can provide education and technical assistance. And I was going through this slideshow earlier and realized I can't remember the exact source that I pulled that information from. And so I will double check that with people who are involved in these preliminary conversations and provide an update on that. So using the available tools in different combinations ultimately creates programs. And the programs are a means of getting more locals along a spectrum of income into stable long-term living situations. And before I move to the next slide, does anyone have any questions about these tools or the outer rings of the Venn diagram and how they can work together to deliver programs? 2 thumbs up. I love that. Awesome. So now we're going to move into some specific programs. And in short, a buy down is when an entity, in Eagle County's case, a local jurisdiction or the county itself, provides funds at closing to bring down the effective cost of buying a house. In return, a deed restriction is placed on the property, and that stays with the property forever. The main 2 iterations of a deed restriction are 1, price capped, and those appreciate by a set amount each year and are usually eligible for more funds at closing. And then the second kind is resident occupied, and those do not have an appreciation cap. Both kinds of deed restrictions ensure that the property stays lived in by people who live and work locally. And going back to the Venn diagram, an example how this program works using the different tools, and this also gets at the funding question of how we could participate, is that Minturn gets feedback from the Regional Housing Authority professionals, so the resource hub, that participating in an existing deed restriction program makes the most sense for our local context. Then Minturn would go to Avon with communication facilitated by the RHA and ask to partner with their Mi Casa deed restriction program. And then we contribute, say, 1/4 of the funds that we retain after RHA dues towards that program. In return, we have access to all of the funds in that program to use the Mi Casa deed restriction program on houses in Mintern's jurisdiction. So it's not like we'd be paying into their fund for housing in Avon. It's that we would be able to use the program here for our neighbors. And then afterwards, Avon and/or the Regional Housing Authority could provide staffing capacity to support the program administration, compliance, and monitoring side of the deed restriction program. Any questions on that?
You know, if there's any businesses that participate like with Avon's Mi Casa program, is there like Walmart or somebody like that, you know, gets in there so they can have employee housing?
I think that would fall underneath probably a different umbrella. That would be more like in the realm of employee housing instead of partnership with the Mi Casa deed restriction program. But if you were to work at Walmart and you've lived in the Valley for a while and you want to buy a home, then you could use that program, and the hours you work at Walmart would apply to the requirement of needing to work in the Valley. But if Walmart wanted to provide housing for its employees at a lower rate, then it wouldn't necessarily be a partnership with this program. It would be them partnering with it would be different, suffice to say.
I still kind of beat that horse that I think the employers in our valley should do more for their employees, whether it's, you know, to have some housing stock or a housing allowance even to help out. So
yeah, no, and I think that that's part of this also, is developing stronger relationships between the employers and the local jurisdictions where their employees work to do that. And then sort of shift the cost and share the resources to make it happen. Next up, we have employee housing, and I recognize that you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk, so I'm just gonna go a little bit faster. But this is basically expanded assistance to rent or buy a home for essential town municipal positions. And then this could also be employee housing, like what we were just talking about, Gusty, where employers partner with the different jurisdictions to try and acquire some of their own housing stock. Next up, we have land banking. And in Mintern's case, I think Lynn mentioned earlier that we do have limited land here other than Dow Junction as one of the last large parcels for development. This would probably look like the town acquiring deed restricted lots and then working with developers as partners to put houses on them. Last but not least, everyone note the picture on this slide, please. This was at the Planning Commission meeting. And then these are just some of the ideas that they came up with. We had more opportunity to talk at length about this, but I asked them to think about different programs that would benefit people of all ages, different income levels, but people who live and work locally mainly, for how we can help them stay in their homes. And I think that there's a lot of really great stuff on here, especially because we also talked about how to bridge Mintern's identity with some of the data that reflects where we are now, and think about how we can get to a spot where we want to be in 50 years' time. And this conversation is really important, and thinking about the different possibilities of these programs is also really essential right now, and not putting money into the conversation as much, because the conversation right now is between the jurisdictions who are thinking about participating in the Regional Housing Authority. And so now is the chance to advocate for the kinds of programs that we would want to see that would help us meet or exceed our housing goals. And this is a quick opportunity alignment. I could not help but notice. So on the left, we have the community plan objectives that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I couldn't help but notice how cleanly a lot of them line up with opportunities that are potentially available through the Regional Housing Authority. And this should all be stuff that we've covered before or was mentioned in the memo. So I just want to quickly direct you to this bottom arrow. I think that supporting historic preservation within Minturn's broader housing strategy and also being conscious of water is something that's on a lot of people's minds. But we do have an opportunity to potentially increase funds for rehabilitating existing homes as a potentially cost-effective strategy for expanding affordable housing, and then also minimize new water taps. We don't have to go big or grand. At the end of the day, 90% of the funds come back to us for us to decide what works locally. So now we are back to key considerations for you guys, and open for discussion about these questions, and then also any other questions that you all have.
I think one of the big problems is the construction and the cost of rehabilitation. So phenomenally. It's just, as somebody who's taken a lot of his old houses and restored them, it's just incredibly expensive. And, you know, a small grant won't get you. You know, it might allow you to buy new appliances, but won't fix something that's structurally unsound or, you know. Won't do anything if there's anything major that needs to be done. And a lot of the older homes do need major things being done to them.
I think, you know, from the staff perspective, this is a tough subject because it's complex. And we're trying to, you know, loop it all in one here and have a conversation about how we can participate in the future of this. But I think the biggest thing for us is we want your feedback on whether you want us to continue the engagement and whether you think our strategy on that engagement makes sense for our town, which is a strategy focused on doing things a lot smaller and not doing big things, and focus more on retaining existing and working individuals and making sure there's space for them in the future. And I think the approach of the other jurisdictions in the county may be quite different. And I think we just want to go into this, you know, if with your direction of, yeah, that is what we want. And that is important to us.
I think you have just the right philosophy. I mean, I think that would be great. It's just also need to take into, I hate to see us doing a lot of work and then being frustrated because it involves increasing local taxes and in a measure that simply won't pass by residents. So that's one of the hard questions we didn't ask in the survey. Would you be willing to pay 1% more on your, property sales, or would you want to see your tax levy go up by a certain percentage if it meant that there would be a pool of money to subsidize affordable housing in Minturn? But I'm not sure that would be how people respond to that.
I also want to jump in real quick and say that, yes, we would be, if we were to raise the taxes, then it would be smaller in comparison, and it might feel like a lot bigger when people are experiencing it on the other end. But also, when we do have an established dedicated stream of funding, this increasing the amount of local funding available for full-time resident housing through new fees and/or voter-approved taxes was something that we said we were interested in looking into in the 2023 community plan. And then also with this unique structure, we would have access to more than what just we have raised.
So we have these huge water, and we're about to make them, and we're about to have the biggest water bill in the whole state in any community, and that's a big burden. And it's increased a lot recently, and it's going to increase a lot more that people are really worried about. And I think that impacts on all of this in that it makes people more fearful of additional financial burden.
And I think one of the things for as a directive for staff and that I, would like from you, and I mean, you're telling me right now, but going into this, because I think it's an important message, and I think it's been just a personal frustration with these conversations in the county thus far, is if the government's going to ask people for money, what are you going to do with the money? And I think we want to come at this of this is if we participate, we want the money to come back to the town. We don't just want to throw money in a regional housing authority that decides what's going to happen and what's going to be done with it. So that's A. And that B, we focus this money on programs that are consistent with what we want. And I think we want to go into that conversation so that we can apply pressure on the other jurisdictions and the partners and say, look, if we're going to be involved, we want the detail about how this is going to work.
We're so small relative to these other communities, and we don't have resortment. We don't have the tax base that other communities in this county have.
But that's a reason to be a part of it, because then the capital becomes exponential with what we're putting in and what we can receive.
That's not clear.
So,
I mean, if I'm understanding correctly, it's like what Core Transit did. There was a ballot measure and every municipality voted separately, and gypsum was on it. So gypsum now is complaining about their dollar that they have to pay for the bus because they didn't want to raise their taxes a penny. But every other community that involved, Minturn and Red Cliff included, got this tremendous service that continues to grow and to grow, and they have a $40 million debt revenue per year that they can outlay. And so this would be, like you said, a preliminary RHA jurisdiction. So this is something the county is going to be doing anyway, and we're choosing whether to be a part of it or not.
The other thing that's different than core too is this money, the largest portion of it would come directly back to us for us to determine how to spend, which is, if we advocate for that structure, which is on the table. And I think that's key. Because if that's not the structure, I think there's a lot of concerns for us about this kind of.
Honestly, I'll probably be the one that's the outcast on this, but I'm not in favor of that. I don't think other citizens in town's going to be in favor of a 1% tax increase for housing when they're the ones that's affected by it. You have a pot of money that will help other people to buy a place in town, but it isn't helping them because they're paying more.
And the only thing I would say is we don't need to worry because ultimately the voters would decide.
Yep.
The question is, though, are we going to be in the conversation and what matters to us as we are in this conversation?
Well,
Because the train will roll. The question is, are we going to influence where that train goes?
if you look at the table back there in regards to the programs, 9, 10 programs, whatever it is, and I believe we were on one. I think we are generally in favor that in regards to staff direction, that yes, we need to look at what is involved to be a partner in those programs and what that dollar figure looks like, not to make a decision at the council level. Obviously, it goes to the residents. But we kind of need to know the answers to those situations because to use a phrase used earlier in regards to concurrent projects, it's a perfect storm. But unfortunately, to go back to the median home price and the rent, we got to do something. What we're doing right now isn't working. So we need to just look at all the solutions. If it doesn't work, residents are in favor for it. Okay. But yeah, we got to look at it.
I guess I'm being optimistic on this one, but there's a lot of development going on in our valley. A lot of building goes, and supply and demand has a lot to do with it too. And we might get a lot of supply and that might bring the demand down and then the prices will come down.
The Lego blocks are not selling
No.
on 70. They have 80 plus units that are not snapped up.
Which ones is that, Tom?
The Wild Ridge or whatever it's called right there in Vale. The modular.
Oh, the Timber Ridge.
Timber Ridge.
A lot of affordable housing that's going empty because it hasn't been thought out well enough. But I think information is always good. We go in the spirit of getting educated, that's always good. But I think we need to take, have a healthy skepticism about the willingness and ability of the town to come up with significant funds or subsidized housing.
And I think that conversation will probably happen later once it's been sort of discussed and sent out what the tax increase would look like. But for now, we're more so focused on, do we think that these potential programs could work in our context if we had control over where they were happening, the timeline, sort of when.
I think of course they work. It's a question of money. It really truly is a question of money. Of course they could work if they were done properly. And of course they'd be a good. But the heavy question that wasn't asked in the survey is whether the town wants to pay for affordable housing.
But so we'll get one of those community surveys points was affordable housing being number 3. So then we continue the talks. And then it goes to the ballot, and then they show whether they want, that's really a priority or not.
Correct.
I think the important thing, like, yeah, there's the money, but it's like you said before on the previous conversation, the devil's in the details. You know, where is the money going and how is it being spent? And that's what's going to matter the most.
We've been doing the affordable housing talk for how many years, as Scott can attest to, in regards to MI recalc, because obviously Belden is a shining example where we came in, thought we were doing a good thing, and then realized that AMI calc did not support the fireman and the teacher. That was the whole discussion there. So point being is back to what Spence is saying is, and as I said earlier in the survey piece, is you have to put the details down. It's super cool you're filling out these surveys, and it's super cool you're coming up with all these great priorities. I want affordable housing, I want this. All right, well, this is what it's going to take. You for it or not? That more so than just throwing out great ideas. Okay, now we need rubber meets the road. This is what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to affect you. Make it sense.
And honestly, when I looked at the town of Minturn, in terms of what can be done in terms of a housing stock, maybe for $500,000, you could stopgap rehabilitate a couple houses that maybe you could that could be purchased for maybe $800,000 a piece, you know, little, but that would totally max us out, you know, super max us out. And that's a little tiny little dent in the affordable housing.
So
for all the effort and energy, they're huge developments that make sense that are going to happen right on the margin. You know, the Avon development, assuming that goes forward on the other side of Dow Junction, that's going to be up to 1,000 units of affordable housing. There's affordable housing sitting empty right now. What we wanted, you know, it's a dream to depress the rents and housing in Minturn. I think we should be less rule oriented. I think we should be more flexible and give people more, you know, I think that will reduce rents somewhat and reduce the cost of housing going forward somewhat. But I just don't know that spending a lot of time on for the town of Minturn, given our particular circumstances, how much that makes sense, because our ability to provide outside, say down outside of potential wilderness areas, our ability to provide significant affordable housing right now, given this market, is, I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's realistic, even if we have $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million worth of funding.
I would just say let's give us a chance. This town is very capable. We're bringing a housing unit this year for $145,000 upstairs, and that's a whole unit.
Yeah.
And that
Have that.
every unit is going to make a difference. And I think our participation in this program could be productive. I think the approach that other jurisdictions have taken hasn't really been successful, in part because it's focused on big projects that have these income restrictions that don't work. And so I think if you can give us the directive to continue these conversations and say, look, we want local control over these dollars. We want the flexibility over large AMI groups. I think that could be productive.
See, I like having our own control. I'm not so sure being part of the big county housing program. We might be going down a rabbit hole with that. I mean, I just think that what we're doing on our own might make more sense than, I keep bringing this up. It's up to the employer to supply the housing. Well, we're doing a pretty good job here in Minturn. You know, we have 10 employees and 4 housing units. That's a pretty good percentage. If you keep working on that, we're taking care of our own, you know, that's doing our part.
I think on a grander scale, though, employee housing, people either that can't switch their job because they lose it, or they can't, like, it becomes very restrictive of what you can do before you just have to leave. So that it's not a catch-all solution of that being first.
Yep, I know employee housing keeps the employees there. I know that for a fact, and that's why they do it. That's why they do it. Yeah, I agree.
Well, one other example to look at that was brought up earlier in regards to the percentage of homes in Minturn that are from 1970 or older. If we look at Main Street right now, well, the Bellum House versus the other 2 homes on Main Street that obviously were tear downs or now are building out. That's an example in regards to the other requirements of keeping Minturn buggy, etc. So point being is those programs, whether it's just singletons, not mass housing developments, not large unit stuff, but specific examples where we as a town can intercede to maintain, to be blunt, middle class, whatever that is defined as now, as opposed to, yes, it's a house that is too expensive to rehab. It's a tear down, but it's going to be replaced by a $3.5 million house. And I will just throw out there, because otherwise you're going to hear comments like I heard one of my fellow residents from Minturn North utter this phrase, well, it's a $3 million house, that's pretty affordable.
Well, and the other thing, if we're less rule, we could make our code more flexible. And the 100 block is a perfect example. I mean, we have such strict non-residential, strict requirements against having residential housing in that block.
Oh, sorry, Len. Sorry.
We have such strict regulations against having residential housing in that block that it's really undermined some of those properties. And I think that we engaged in some wishful thinking with the 100 block that wasn't based and wasn't realistic based on what the economic circumstances of the downtown area and Minturn really are. And as a result of that, we have 3 or 4 homes that are just sitting there vacant for several years. And I think if people were allowed to make them residential or more residential than they're allowed to now, that those homes would sell and be occupied.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I'd like to pull up all the minutes where I told you stop dwelling in the 100 block.
We have some.
Just.
I think
I was gonna.
It's ambiguous, but it's direction.
I would like to get a quick gauge because I'm not really used to council meetings. I can gather what the consensus is.
This is how they go. We got so much more time left.
Wait, here's the part where Jay starts to wax poetic about 1972. So basically the direction, one, is what you said you didn't want to bring to the meeting, which is what we want to hear, which is the cost. What does it cost to get in this 5-car stud Texas Hold'em operation of those different programs? One. And then two, as Rob said here, in regards to the partnership, ultimately, what are we gonna be able to turn around and tell the citizens they're gonna get? If it goes to ballot and if they decide to vote on it, what are we gonna legitimately be able to say, okay, just as we told you, you pay X, this is what we're gonna get out of it, and actually see fundamental results from that.
The
What
results
those
will,
programs-
obviously, and the results will correlate to the level of taxation. And so if it's $200,000 a year, if it's an extra $5 a month on a home bill, it will correlate it to that. But we're not gonna know what the cost is because that's gonna be put together by the regional group. But what we can do is say, these are the programs we can fund, and this is what we can do with these programs at these estimated funding levels. That we can do.
Are you talking like the county programs that they have now being able to?
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying like that. This is going to be formulated by the larger group. And just like in my memo, there's like, we could do this, we could do this. And all those things shake out to somewhere between $150,000 and $350,000 a year. And I can tell you what we can do with that kind of money every year. That I can do. I can't tell you how it will shake.
When the town or significant percentage of the town is opposed to an issue, and I'm thinking now of the when Battle Mountain won trade Battle Mountain for Meadow Mountain. Council at that time agreed to send a letter to the Forest Service that was just to get more information about that. And the town was very, very, very upset about their doing that because they were very, very clear on that issue. I don't think the town is that clear on this issue.
Yeah, but it's number 3, affordable housing.
Well, we have a lot of time to work with because this is not going to be going anywhere anytime
That's
soon.
affordable, that's not, that they're paying for affordable housing. I'm saying,
To create affordable housing.
I don't think people think like that, Spence.
Well, I agree with you.
They like to see the affordable housing, but they don't know how they're gonna get it. That's the thing.
Going to pay for it.
This is the problem with the surveys. These are Pollyanna streams where there's no legitimate backing.
At least if you go through the process, we can.
Remember, that could be just programs like in developments requiring a certain percentage to be restricted, that sort of thing. But I think they might be thinking more like that.
Well, we don't know
But
until
we
we
don't-
put those things out there.
We don't know, and we haven't found out. I'm just saying,
Find out
this
soon.
is kind of a dangerous area to go too far down this path without getting a better sense of what the town really wants.
When we were talking about a specific housing and like growth management, maybe survey to go out. I know we were talking about Magellan doing it, but I'd be really curious to see the results too. And I leave in August to go back to school. But I do think that like it's really important now for us to at least entertain the ideas. I know it takes funding to do it, but also with the understanding that a little bit can go a long way in this program. And it's not going to be us making the Lego house developments. It would be something more like somebody getting down payment assistance to buy one of the houses on Main Street or elsewhere in town. And then forever onwards, like, yes, it might only be a small dent, but a deed restriction lasts with the property forever. And so that house is then reserved for people who live and work in the county. And then there's also some limitations on certain improvements you can do so that it doesn't turn into a multi-million-dollar home that nobody who lives and works here can afford.
So up until fairly recently, this town was running almost bankrupt every year. I mean, we are historically a poor community. And we sort of got saved by sales tax from Amazon, you know, but basically if you look at our finances, we had one of the reasons we're having all these issues are infrastructure. So we had deferred maintenance up the wazoo for decades and decades and decades. And we're struggling right now, and I mean struggling to catch up on things that should have been done decades and decades ago, but we didn't have the money for it. And with the new water treatment plant, which is an enormous expenditure, and we have to come up with the money to match the grant in the Bellum Bridge. We're doing better than we ever have, but we're not doing that well. We really don't have extra money. And our residents are really taxed, and they pay very high, unusually high utility bills to live here. It costs a lot more to live in Minturn than it does to live elsewhere, just in terms of monthly bills. And I just think we have to tread carefully here, guys. That's all I'm saying.
And I understand that, Lynn, and I think the one thing that people in this town are afraid of, and people all across the country, and what we're experiencing is not unique, is that there's a lot of change happening, especially in desirable places. And even when you go abroad, you know, places that are desirable are experiencing so much change, so much displacement, and it's not unique to us. And I think I know everywhere you go, it's like people are like, this place isn't the same. This place isn't the same. It's all you hear, unless you're in some small town in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, maybe. But this is an opportunity for us to maybe do something about the change we're experiencing and ensuring that the town of tomorrow is lining up with the town of the past.
And yeah, just to piggyback off of Rob, I think I probably didn't express this well enough during the actual presentation, but I really do want us to start big with this before we hone into the details and think about, we were just talking about how infrastructure repairs and maintenance should have been done years ago. What in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, are we going to look back on and be like, we should have done that then before it got so bad?
Especially if the counties, municipalities are rolling this forward.
And that's a great point, because we don't want to end up like Summit or Breck. You know, it's like in Breck, 4% of the homes are owner occupied market rate. They get up to 14% owner occupied with deed restrictions, and the rest is short-term rentals.
Breck is total resort town.
Yeah, I know, but we're right next to total resort town.
It's built around a resort.
Let's just, I think I do have.
Go at a slow pace at it and just take a little view at it, not just jump in with both feet, just slow pace.
Yeah.
Heard.
Yes. We're barely, it's like toe in the pool.
Yes.
God.
Future, you guys have.
Aggressively defensive.
Thank you for your patience, and she's been working on this for the last 3 months. She's
Good
been
job.
an
You did great.
incredible intern.
Good job.
Patient is really helpful for all of us. I mean, you know, we could thank you again, because it sparked all that. It's made us get real.
Yeah.
Not an easy topic.
No, it's not. And thank you guys also for letting me speak on this topic and yeah, being willing to engage in the conversation. So yeah.
Great job.
I'm just depressed.
Future agenda?
Depressed.
Yes.
No, I mean, we can do it.
I want to bring up something. I've done a lot of executive sessions, so I'm going to preface it that way. They terrify me. I've seen boards go off the rails so fast. Mike is in a blackout and he doesn't have internet either. So we're kind of looking at,
He's got it now.
we either do it now with the 5 of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, and Rob, or we push it to the first. Rob's.
The executive session.
Honestly, I don't see it going off the rails with us.
You guys better behave.
I think it'll be fine.
It's over. It's over.
I think this will be quick.
I do too.
We're
You
gonna,
have a future agenda item.
Yeah.
now, we will need, do you have the script that you need to read?
I do.
Okay, so you got that. When you guys come out, Eric, tomorrow or whatever, if you could send me an email of what the direction is, concise enough that we could, if we need to do a resolution to do an amendment to his contract, if we, whatever. We don't need to get into he said, she said, that kind of a thing. This is an executive session and there's privileges to it. And it gets down to, I've really, really tried not to get in the middle between Rob and the council.
Can we just conference call Mike on phone?
You can try.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Before we do that, Gussie has one.
I have one, maybe, I don't know if it'll be for a future agenda item or if you're working on chapter 16 now, but with this drought that we're having, and it could happen down the road more, we have the codes written for the landscaping plans for new development. I think we ought to reevaluate that and not have, like, you gotta have so many trees, you gotta have so much square footage of grass. We should look at more xeriscape and not be going down that road, because you know, that's where most of the water goes from in the summertime is for irrigation. So I just, you know, I think that's something we gotta look at.
Yes, we do. Gotcha.
Now we're gonna adjourn for executive session.
It's-
There.
Yep.
All right.
I could make a motion if you want.
Yeah, Gussie's gonna make a motion for adjourning into executive.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn regular session and reconvene an executive session for the direction of personal matters under CRS section 24-6-402 4F and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in any open session, any member of the body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of a body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees, town administrator review.
Second. Motion by Gussie, second by Spence, all in favor? We will now convene an executive session.